All right, I think there we are. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm Eric Smith, and I am with.
Kayleigh Dobbs.
There we go. I call Kayleigh the Goat, but you're actually Leader Goat. Is that
Goat
correct?
leader.
Goat Leader.
But
And
any variation is fine.
Happy Goat Horror. You're the Goat.
The goat. Yes.
So Kayleigh, for anybody who doesn't know, runs Happy Goat Horror, book reviews, and what else? Lists and
Yeah, like my top 10 favorite vampire novels and things like that, and general bookish content, I would say. We're expanding into other horror stuff this year, so apparently. Cool. I'm a bit obsessed with the books.
Yeah, books are the best.
They are.
So today hopefully we're just going to chat, talk about things, but I have a quiz for Kayleigh. I have 11 one-star reviews for Stephen King books, and we're going to see if you can guess what they are.
I'm so excited. We'll see, because I have, for anyone who isn't familiar with my book lists, I have read every published Stephen King work. That was quite a time that year that I was trying to steam through all the ones I hadn't read yet.
Well, I consider it a clue. You may not. I only went with books that I have read.
Cool. Okay.
Only a small fraction of the Stephen King works that you have read. There's a huge gap in my Stephen King reading. But before we get to all that, what's going on? What's new with you? It's a new year. You just had a holiday and a birthday, and
yes, I suppose the newest thing is I had a book out at the end of November, and which you very kindly
that up.
That book. Thank you. I was gonna say, which you very kindly reviewed. Very nicely, I must say. And I'm still in book launch mode because I'm still getting reviews and people requesting review copies and things. So it's been a very nice month because it went a lot better than my first book release, which was Corpsing. And 7 years ago, when I didn't know anything, I didn't know it was even my responsibility to try and get book reviews. Back then, I just thought they'd magically appear. So it's been a different experience this time. And then I suppose Happy Goat Horror, it's just me and my brother who does the gaming stuff with me, so Gamer Goat, but the other goats have trotted off, apart from the occasional guest. So I'm just going to use the royal we for all the goat stuff. It's a habit I'm in now. So we've opened the doors to anyone who wants to write book reviews and articles for the site. If anyone writes anything but they don't have somewhere to host it. The reason I haven't actively sought out people for this is because I can't pay anyone because I don't make any money from Happy Goat. So I didn't want to start approaching people, but we have had a few people email in this week with offers to give us articles and things and take a look at the big review request list, which would be very helpful to me. So that'll be nice because I'm trying to build up a bit more of a team. Would be very nice. A casual team of people who don't have deadlines. So, and we're looking to go into some horror film content, but that's a bit trickier because we've tried to. My brother will do that with me because that's all we spend our time doing really, is just ranting about films, like The Happening. We just haven't figured out the format that we want to do it, like how we want to film that yet. But yeah, that's pretty much it at the moment.
That's the content I'm looking forward to. I want to see you and Mikey ranting about movies.
He's I know I probably sound biased because he's my brother, but he is hilarious. And if you get him on a topic that has made him angry, it is the funniest thing. So I was like, we're going to have to start recording these conversations because, yeah, he has me in stitches. Just don't bring up Star Wars to him, ever.
Note to self, talk to Mikey about Star Wars.
These sequels, and then you can do the prequels, which he hates less now because of the sequels, and also the final season of Game of Thrones.
Well, I don't have a video game system. I kind of do because my Blu-ray player broke down, and so my semi brother-in-law gave me an old PS3 so I could watch movies.
Mhm.
So technically, there's a video game system right there, but I don't play games. Haven't played in ages. Don't normally watch gameplay videos, but I love watching the stuff that's on the Happy Goat Horror YouTube channel because you and Mikey, just the two of you, are incredibly entertaining.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. We never know if anyone's even watching our gaming videos, but we're both very busy, and he works full time and I do, and we've got a lot of stuff going on. So even though we live like 3 minutes away from each other, we don't see each other as much as we'd like. And we decided we'll add gaming to Happy Goat Horror, and it's basically just an excuse for once a month we just get together and spend the entire day. Well, I can't do the video gaming. I have to just sit there and chat because I can't multitask. And we tried it the other way around once, and those videos didn't make it to the internet because it was about 20 minutes of me standing in a room.
I did see you do the shooting gallery thing once.
Oh yeah, how'd it go?
But yeah, it's funny. I remember he's got anecdotes about takeaway that he didn't order, and
Oh yeah.
you ranting about Alien Covenant, or maybe it was Prometheus.
No, it was Covenant.
Covenant. Yeah, I mean, again, it's just fun, and the interactions between you two are very entertaining. So I'm hoping to see you two just going off on movies.
Oh, good. Yeah, we're really looking forward to it. Yeah, we're very close. You should have heard the speech he made at my wedding. I asked him to. I don't have a dad around on my side, so Mikey is the man of my household, my growing up household, and I asked him if he could just say a few words, just to welcome the Dobbs side of the family to our family, that kind of thing, because I knew that Nick's dad was going to make a speech of a similar ilk, and he proceeded to do a 20-minute comedic monologue that was more like a stand-up routine about embarrassing Christmas anecdotes of me. You can ask Steve Kosniewski about that. Actually, he was there. Yeah, I'm looking forward to. You'll be the first to know. I'll let you know when we've actually filmed something.
Very excited. Although, how could you possibly talk smack about The Happening?
Well, we're not talking smack so much as appreciating it for its particular kind of genius.
It is I think, a terrible movie, but I could watch it over and over again.
So yeah, I feel like it's one of those films that's great to watch with other people.
Absolutely.
Because it's I watched it alone because my brother kept going. He was like, you have to watch it. He was like, Kayleigh, I'm not speaking to you until you've watched it. So I watched it on my own, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I just couldn't believe my eyes. And I feel like sometimes that Shyamalan is just punking everyone. Because I just don't believe that the guy who did The Sixth Sense, it's so weird to see something like The Happening.
I'd rather, well, I was going to say I'd rather rewatch The Happening. But I think it's because of its comedic value. The Sixth Sense is so dark and brooding.
Yeah.
And it is worth a rewatch, but it's not as much fun.
Yeah. I feel that way about Midsommar and Hereditary. I think that they're both excellent films, but Hereditary, like, even thinking about that makes me feel gloomy. It's not the kind of film I want to watch over and over. I've seen it twice. But Midsommar I've watched a whole bunch of times because it's completely different in tone. So.
I haven't seen Midsommar yet. I know the whole story.
Yeah.
Because I listened to a podcast called Too Scary Didn't Watch.
Oh, cool.
And so it's three friends. Two of them are too scared to watch horror movies. although they occasionally do. But the other one loves horror movies, so she watches them and then describes them to her friends.
Oh, that's cool.
And there are some I have not listened to because I absolutely don't want spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some, even if I haven't seen the movie and I'd like to, I'm like, but it's not that important that it's spoiled. And so Midsummer was one of those. I listened to that one. So I know what happens. And I love Florence Pugh.
Yeah, she's great.
And a lot of the other people that are in there, I can't, Jackson, the guy from The Good Place.
Yeah, it's got a good cast. I can't remember anyone's names now.
Yeah, except Florence Pugh. That's the only one I can ever remember.
Well, that the fun of that film is in the for me anyway. It's sort of the sets, costume design, and all of like the little on-screen clues, because you know what you're in for as soon as they get to the place. Like you know exactly what kind of film it is. It's a joy to watch because of the level of detail and effort that's gone into like creating the commune and everything. So I do like behind the scenes stuff though. So that kind of stuff to me, I'm like, oh, look at the tapestry. So that might just be me. But yeah, so I recommend it. It's pretty good.
It's on my long list of movies to watch.
Yeah, the never-ending list.
Yes.
Much like the book CBR.
Yeah. I just got 2 more books today.
Well, we all know that collecting books is a different hobby, Eric, to actually reading them. So I fully consent. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say I had to get the 3rd book in a trilogy that I just started reading.
Yes.
And then I got a book that's a novelization of a movie I have no interest in watching.
Interesting.
I'm not a fan of the director, but I'm a huge fan of the author. So I decided to pick it up. It's right here. I'll just show you.
Yeah. What is it?
It's this.
Oh, is that the V Castro?
Yeah, V Castro.
Cool. Oh, that's amazing. Well, yeah. Zack Snyder, yes.
Yeah, I'm not a Zack Snyder fan. I'm not interested in Rebel Moon, but I will buy anything V Castro puts out.
Yeah, I'm like that with Tim Lebbon. So I went in on his horror stuff. I just bought. I'm going to wheel over here and grab it. After Christmas, I did say I'm not buying any more books this year, but then I bought Run, Walk, Crawl. It's a non-fiction about his sort of fitness journey when he hit his 40s. I haven't started it yet, but I am currently embarking on somewhat of a fitness journey, and I thought, some pep talk from Tim indirectly with his book. But
why not jump into the deep end with someone who does how many Iron Man things a year?
Yeah, he's in very good shape. Like I wouldn't like to race him or do any sort of competitive sport whatsoever with him actually. But I'm making my way through sort of his back catalogue of horror first because that's my main interest. But then I'm gonna start buying, the novelizations of the other properties he's written, and some of them are interesting to me because I know I'm sure he's done an Alien one, at least one Alien novel.
I believe an Alien novel and then a trilogy of Alien versus Predator.
Yes.
I can see them right over there. I've read them and reviewed them all.
Yeah, and then I'm going to make my way to like I know he's done some Firefly as well. I'm sure I'm right that he's done some Firefly, and I did like Firefly.
Ew.
Or am I wrong?
I wish I could. My Firefly books are all on a shelf right in front of me, but there are 2 book carts in front of that.
Okay. Well,
so I can't see them. I know James Lovegrove has done like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Does Tim Lebbon have one? If he does, I have it. It's on my shelf.
I might have misread. He's done a lot of books. So maybe I've misremembered some of the titles.
I could be. I have a Hellboy novel that he did. And I know, of course, we've talked about he did a Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I got my phone right here. I'm gonna look it up because
Yes,
why
but
not?
we need to know. While you're doing that, I'm just going to pitch Tim Lebbon stuff to everyone. If you haven't read Tim Lebbon, what are you doing with your life? If you're a horror fan, he's he's I love buying his books as well because he is such an outrageously nice person. And I'm sure I've said that before. I brings me joy knowing that I've added to someone's sales revenue and they've made a profit off my purchase when I know that they're a really, really nice person. It's like it's always disappointing when you've been a fan of someone and then you find out they're a dick. You're like, oh, I
Yes.
want to buy any more of this stuff now, but this stuff is good.
You are absolutely right, which is why you are the goat.
Oh, he has done Firefly.
Firefly Generations.
Cool.
It's the fourth of 9.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And yeah, so it's literally, I'm pointing to where it's at on my shelf, even though I can't see it, but I know
Yes,
exactly where it
you know
is.
where it is.
Yep, because I have them all right there. Um,
Which authors have you met in real life that you like?
um, well, interestingly, speaking of Tim Lebbon, I was at a convention where Christopher Golden was,
Yeah.
but I didn't get to meet him.
Oh.
Um, so there used to be a convention just south of me in Columbus, Ohio. Of course, I found out about it the year after Brian Keene was there.
Oh, I'm sure that he's around at a lot of things though.
But the first time I went, I spent the day basically hanging out with Gord Rollo and Gene O'Neill, and they bought us lunch. There were a couple of us just hanging out with them, and trying to remember who else. But Elizabeth Mass, yeah, I got to meet Elizabeth Massey and her husband, who worked on one of the greatest movies ever made, The Lost Skeletons of Cadavra.
Oh, I don't know that one.
It is the perfect pastiche of a 50s science fiction movie
Oh, cool. That sounds good.
with, terrible dialogue and terrible special effects, but played straight.
Oh, that's the best.
It's absolutely amazing. So I got to meet them. I met Gina Rinaldi there, Anderson Prunty. Trying to think, probably the biggest. I'm sure I've met Glenn Rolfe
Oh, wow, cool.
at Horror Hound Weekend. He didn't even have a booth or anything. He just went up there to like sell books out of a backpack.
Oh, well, that's the best way sometimes.
Oh, and Jonathan Jans
Hmm.
and a bunch of people at one of the Horror Hounds when Sam Hain used to always have a table.
Yeah. I haven't
Christopher Ruffty.
oh, I haven't read any Jonathan Jans yet, but he's been like on my list forever. So
Great stuff.
yeah.
And the nicest guy.
Oh, really? Oh, I haven't.
Super nice.
Cool.
But yeah, Christopher Ruffty, John Everson, who I has killed me.
Oh,
And
cool.
I did
In a
some
book.
proofreading for him. Yeah, Gord Rollo killed me. Uh, John Everson killed me. Kelly Owens has killed me. And I think Wiley Young might have killed me, but I haven't read the book yet.
Oh, which one is it?
It's his second horror or splatter western.
The Man
He
Coffin or the other one?
The one after the Magpie Coffin. He did a little thing on his newsletter, and if you could say where he got the name, the first person to say where he got the name of his newsletter, he said he would put in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And that was then he said he's like, "You won, Eric," but I haven't read the book yet, so I don't know.
Well, that'd be a nice thing for you to read when you get to it, though.
So I'm trying to collect books where people have killed me off.
That would be like a fun video idea in itself, Eric.
Oh, Hunter Shea killed me.
Hence Shay.
Love Hunter. But I'm sure there's. Oh, I did get to meet Jack Ketchum.
Did you?
Yes, and I annoyed him by asking him to sign the skeleton cheerleader cover of The Girl Next Door.
Well, at least you didn't practically start crying and hyperventilating and talk nonstop about the critter ball from Critters 2, as I did when I met Mick Garris.
Hey, no, I haven't quite gone that far, but I have. I've certainly become less awkward, I would say, from maybe the first time meeting somebody, especially since I've been doing interviews and things.
Mhm.
Now, they're just people.
Yeah, I never expect to be like that, but it happens, and I don't know when it's going to happen. Or sometimes if I know I'm going to meet someone and I'm a fan, I think okay, and then I get there, I'm fine, and then other times I'm like and then I get there and I'm like oh.
Well, I know you've met Tim Lebbon, and
Yeah.
I believe you said Adam Neville.
Yeah.
Who else? Who are the biggies for you?
Oh, well, obviously, I say obviously because of the convention circuit in the UK, I've met a lot of my favorite indie horror writers. Like Kit Power is a friend of mine now, I would say, and I like Andrew Freudenberg as well, Tracy Fahey. Fahey. I'm sure I say her name wrong every time. I say it differently every time, and I'm sure I'm saying it wrong. And then yeah, I met Adam Neville a few times, and I'm mostly via the internet. Obviously, we live very far apart, so I don't see him much, but unless it's a convention. But I'm friendly with him now because the first time I met him, I'd never read any of his books, so. And I didn't know who he was and everyone, it was at a horror con, and everyone was like, oh my God, Adam Neville's over there. And I was like, who's Adam Neville? And people were like, oh, what do you mean? So I went over and I was like, hello, I'm new to you. What would you recommend? So he recommended The Ritual. And he was lovely. He asked me about myself, and I was like, well, I'm an aspiring writer, and he gave me loads of advice, and yeah, it was just generally lovely person. And then went home and read The Ritual in one sitting, and I was like, oh, now I see why everyone was making such a big deal out of him, because it's completely deserved. He's so talented. And then I've met him a few other times at other conventions, and he's just a wonderfully nice person. And then Tim, I embarrassed myself in front of the first time. Because I was freaking out, and he was very, very nice. And then I saw him again at another convention, and we live local to each other. So yeah, we've sort of like made friends now. So I've stopped being such a weirdo when I talk to him. It feels surreal to be, friends with an author you've been reading like that for years and everything. But yeah, I think we're only about 20 minutes apart, location-wise. I have met Mick Garris, as I said, who's a screenwriter responsible for Hocus Pocus and Critters 2, and my mind's gone blank, but loads of stuff. Most of those Stephen King adaptations, like
Yes.
from back in the day, like The Stand, and yeah, all of the stuff I grew up on, basically. So I was very excited. And I've met Grady Hendrix, who is he's possibly the most enthusiastic person in the entire world about horror.
Don't tell him what I said about his book.
Oh, I'm sure he wouldn't mind, Eric.
Although I'm really into it now.
Yeah, he's so. I thought that I was a horror nerd, but then Grady Hendrix starts talking, and you can tell that his entire life has been built on his love of horror stuff. He's possibly the biggest horror superfan in the entire world, and he was very nice to be around because he was just so excited and knowledgeable about really weird, obscure stuff.
Well, the first thing I read by him was the Paperbacks from Hell, because that was something that interested me. I grew up in that era, and I love those covers. And so having a book with pictures of all these fantastic covers and somebody talking about them, and I get all of the paperback from hell reprints from Valancourt.
Hmm.
And so, but so far, as far as his fiction goes, I've only read 2 2/3 books at this point.
Yeah.
Because I'm 2/3 of the way through How to Sell a Haunted House. And I've enjoyed what I've read, even though I had a rough start with this one. But I
Well,
just might have been in the wrong mood.
maybe I've only read Horror Store, and it wasn't really my cup of tea. I liked the gimmick of like the layout of the book and everything, but I wasn't like such a huge fan of the book itself. But then after meeting him, I liked him so much that I do have more Grady Hendrix here that I bought. So I thought I'll give something else a go. Maybe it was just that book that wasn't for me, but other people have recommended some other things. Other people like Grady Hendrix that didn't like Horror Store, so I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll take those. I did meet at a Walking Dead convention Jay Bonenzinger, who writes the Walking Dead novels with Robert Kirkman, and he was. I find this is a common theme with writers, but they were all very, very nice people. The people I've met anyway, just yeah, lovely people to talk to. He was a highlight of Walking Dead conventions for me. Out of people I've met, I have to say, I've just written a. It won't be published until March, I think, because I tried to get ahead on my schedule this year to fit in more video stuff. I've just written an article about my top 10 favorite Walking Dead actors that I've met. And someone has asked me for a bottom 10, the top 10 worst, and I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. But I don't think there are 10 that were horrible, to be honest. But
the last time I went to Horror Hound Weekend, which was quite a few years ago, John Barenthal was there, and now I don't know. It's been a long time. I stopped watching The Walking Dead after a while. Was the character's name Jesus or Jesus?
Jesus.
Okay, so the guy that
Yeah.
played Jesus was there. I think there are a few more, and
I
I didn't
just
get to meet.
met him in October. We went to, I say we, my cousin and I went to Comic-Con in Liverpool, which is my first ever Comic-Con. I've never gone to one before, and we went because Jensen Ackles was there. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that there's any other reason that we went apart from that Jensen Ackles was there. But we did meet a few people, and he was there, and he was one of the few Walking Dead cast that I hadn't managed to meet at a convention. So I finally got to go talk to him.
Yeah, I didn't get to meet any of them. I think I'm trying to remember. I went with my nephew and niece-in-law, although they weren't married at the time. And I think I'm trying to remember if they met John Barenthal. I was there. I got to meet. Have you seen either Idle Hands
Yeah,
or Butterfly Effect? Eldon
yeah,
Henson,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Panub in
Yeah.
Idle Hands. He was there. And did you watch the TV show Psych?
No.
Oh, well, he's in an episode of Psych called Tuesday the 17th. And I actually had him autograph, or asked him to, and he did autograph the disc, my Psych disc that has that episode on it.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Because it's and of course it's Tuesday the 17th. It's a horror thing
Hmm.
episode that, I mean, so many horror tropes in it. But the star of the show, Psych, huge horror fan.
Hmm.
He's made a couple horror movies,
That's
directed.
cool.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I got to meet Eldon Henson. Um, a lot of people in movies. Not enough authors. I haven't been to any, like, aside from Context, the one down in Columbus. I haven't been to any like book conventions.
Well, I've only discovered those in the last year and a half, 2 years, and I've stopped going to horror cons and started going to the writing and the book conventions instead because Ramsey Campbell. I can't believe I forgot to mention I met Ramsey Campbell a few times, and oh my god, he was another one I embarrassed myself in front of them. I wasn't too bad, but I was just so been reading his book since I was a teenager, so I was really excited. I just went up to him, I was like, "Excuse me, Mr. Ramsey, can you sign all of my books?" I really like the book conventions because I do enjoy horror cons and stuff, and it's fun to go and have your photo with actors and whatever. And I really enjoyed those, but they're really expensive, and the guests are very like inaccessible. Like you pay to have a photo, and you're rushed through. You have like 5 seconds, and then you're gone. And you're like, oh, okay, so I can officially say I technically met Matthew Lillard now, but whereas like the book conventions, they usually, in the UK anyway, they're always hosted in hotels, and then everyone's just sort of like milling around interacting, and there's no one, like there isn't like a special area for the authors to go in the UK anyway. I don't know what it's like in the US. So that's how I've got to meet like all these people I'm a fan of, and I usually take my favorite book by an author if I know they're there, in the hopes that I'll bump into them in the cafe or the bar or something. And I always do. It's yeah, they're just really friendly, warm conventions. So they're like the highlight of the year whenever I have like stuff booked that I'm excited to go to. I do like the bigger conventions though. They are fun, but it's just not the same.
Scares That Care was my holy grail of conventions that I wanted to go to, but they don't do that anymore. But now they have AuthorCon.
Yeah.
So I really want to get to AuthorCon or KillerCon. And Ghoulish Books, Max Booth III and Ghoulish Books does a Ghoulish Book Fest. I think this is the third year he's doing it. I'd love to get to that. And their bookstore. They have a bookstore now.
Yeah.
Bookstore. I would love to just go. I love Max Booth III. He is the Paul Sheldon to my Annie Wilkes. I've said that to him. And he said that was fine.
That's cool. But I saw Brian Keane and Mary San Giovanni. Is this the same bookshop? Was a separate one? Because they've opened the bookshop, haven't
Brian
they?
Keane, yeah, theirs is Vortex Books and Comics, something like that, and that's going to be in Pennsylvania. Max Booth, everything, his whole brand is Ghoulish now. It was, Perpetual Motion Machine Publishing. Now it's just Ghoulish Books, Ghoulish Fest, and his bookstore is just called Ghoulish, and I believe it's in Selma, Texas. It's right outside of San Antonio, Texas. And I've seen he posts pictures of the interior. They do free movie screenings. He's had writer workshops and all sorts of cool stuff. It just seems like a great place to check out. And it's just all horror stuff.
Yeah, that's so cool. To my knowledge, there's nothing that exists like that in a reasonable travel distance for me. But I would love it. We don't even have the town that Tim Lebbon lives in has a couple of bookshops, but I'm surprised they're still open because the one is so unbelievably expensive, and right opposite it there's a Waterstones. And it's so I'm surprised that they're still in business, but it seems like a hard sell in the UK, like independent bookstores for some reason.
We used to have some of the greatest used bookstores around here, and now there's half-price books. And that's about it, at least locally, relatively locally to me.
Yeah. I'd love to go.
One. Please.
I was going to say, I'd love to just go and hang out in a bookstore. I'd love that, but there isn't one. So I'm at home on Amazon instead.
Well, when there was we may have talked about all this before. When we had a Borders bookstore, I was there three times a week. At least twice a week, often 3 times a week. I always went on Tuesdays when new books came out. I would go on Saturdays, and if the weather was nice, I would just sit out on their patio, and read. And then occasionally I would just go on a random weekday because it's a bookstore.
Sorry, I'm having some internet issues. I'm just moving slightly towards my router. Sorry, we'll go over here.
Well, my Wi-Fi connection. More books.
Yes.
a different selection of books.
Yeah, sorry, I just saw my Wi-Fi drop and then you froze on my end. I was like, oh no. But
All right. Let's see. Anything else we need to talk about before we start the quiz?
I don't know. Do you know, because we talk a lot in, real life outside of YouTube, I can't remember what we talked about in our last video and what we've just talked about.
Exactly.
Yeah. Apologies if, you saw our last video together and we're retreading stuff, but
I don't
it's lost in the
apologize for any of it. Well, we'll get started. So as I said, I picked 11. I think I have 11 one-star reviews of Stephen King books.
Yeah.
I don't know how easy or difficult these may be. There's some I just picked because they were so wild and crazy to read.
Oh, cool.
And a lot of them were very long, so I just picked like the best part, I thought. So
Okay.
just to sort of get started, we'll just jump into the first one and see what happens. So this is
Okay.
what's that?
I just said okay.
Oh, okay. So this is a one-star review for a Stephen King book. The title of the review is "Why is this getting such high rating? Not worth it." And the part that I have to read here says, "I have no idea why this is such a big story in people's head. It was recommended by a friend, and I'm still chewing his head off every time I see him. Such a lame novel. Maybe it has a deep meaning that I didn't get, but honestly, no. It's just not worth the read. So he keeps describing this girl's misery and the stuff going around. Then what? The story ends, you know what happened, and you feel like you gained nothing."
Is it Carrie?
It is Carrie.
Oh, I was struggling until he mentioned a girl's misery, and I thought, maybe that would.
Yeah, unfortunately, like going through the reviews, they're either the parts that don't just straight up give away what it is are kind
Yeah.
of vague. So it was difficult to find. But yes, Carrie. Um, so I don't recall. I watched your series of videos ranking all of the Stephen King books. I don't recall where Carrie fell.
I don't recall where Carrie fell. There's a lot of books, and it's been a while since I made those videos. I think that it's somewhere in the middle, like the upper middle. I think I put Carrie. I like it personally. I think it's a really good debut, especially for I know it's not the first thing he wrote, but I know as a debut that was released, right. I think it's yeah, I think it's pretty good. I haven't read it in a long time though, so.
Well, I've only read it once, and that was just a few years ago. That's the first time I read it. I had no idea that it was essentially epistolary.
Yeah.
And yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I read it as a teenager, so it's been a while for me.
How many of the movie versions have you seen?
I have seen the Sissy Spacek, and I didn't see any of the sequels. I saw the remake with Chloe Grace Moretz, and I didn't really like it because I had a really hard time buying that people would be so mean to her.
See, I think, yes, she's an attractive young lady, but I think if you're weird enough, people are still going to be mean.
Yeah, I think it's because I thought that it was Julianne Moore, wasn't it, that played?
Yes.
Yeah. I thought she was good. I thought that they were great. Do you know what it was? I think it's just that to me, Carrie didn't really need an update. Didn't really need a remake, in my opinion.
It didn't, and I'm CGI. I love CGI in superhero movies, science fiction. It doesn't. It very seldom works for me in horror, unless it's very subtle.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem that subtle in Carrie.
Yeah. I take practical effect any day, especially absolutely. In horror. Yeah.
I haven't seen the Angela Bettis made for TV version.
No, me neither.
But I have seen The Rage Carrie 2,
Oh, have you?
and I don't think it's a bad movie. It's not a
Oh, maybe
great
I'll
movie.
watch it.
It's a product of its time.
Hmm.
I think, and this is just my opinion, I think the problem that people have with it is the same problem I think people are having with The Exorcist Believer, is
Hmm.
that it's a if The Exorcist Believer were just a generic Exorcist movie, I don't think people would have as big a problem with it. The fact that they tried to make it or made it a legacy movie.
Yeah.
And I think that's this if The Rage Carrie 2 were just The Rage about a girl with telekinesis and whatever she goes through, but
Yeah.
tying it in and making it a Carrie movie, I think is a big problem that people have with it and why it's um, less valued. I don't know,
Hmm.
or rated more harshly.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it would just. I think they use the name to try and draw in an audience, don't they? And then it doesn't. It works against them.
Mhm.
My brother told me he always has good game trivia, and he told me that Devil May Cry was supposed to be a Resident Evil game, and that's why camera-wise it's directed the way it is when you're running around and you lose your view when you run around a corner on purpose. And because I said, oh, this feels like a Resident Evil game but with a demon hunter, and he was like, oh, funny you should say. And then he gave me all the trivia, and he said just somewhere along the line they just decided to make it its own thing because it was too far departed from Resident Evil. They thought the fans would have an issue, and I agree, and I think that was a good decision to separate the make
Interesting.
it its own thing.
Well, that's Rebel Moon was originally pitched as a Star Wars movie,
Yeah, you could kind of tell because of the artwork and stuff.
and the lightsabers and
Yeah.
some of the other things, and then you have the uh, especially in franchises, the movies like later sequels that actually started out as completely unrelated scripts
Mhm.
that were retrofit. I know Hellraiser has a few of them,
Oh, really?
and Saw has a few of them,
Mm.
where it's like, we own this script, let's throw Pinhead in and we'll make it a Hellraiser movie.
Yeah. I think it's they just ultimately do themselves a disservice, I think, because then people do have extra issues that they wouldn't have had, like you said. And I think fans know when something has been disingenuously sort of, tied into something. Like people, they're like, well, that was nothing to do with any of that apart from the title. So I wonder what my favorite one of those is. I'm trying to think.
Well, one of the craziest examples I can think of is Troll 2,
Oh God.
because it has absolutely nothing. First of all, I saw Troll, the original Troll, in the theater.
Did you?
Yes.
What an experience.
And Troll 2 has literally nothing to do with the movie. They never
No.
say the word trolls, they're goblins.
Yeah, the
But it's
goblins.
like, we have this movie called Troll that people seem to like well enough. Let's just call this one Troll 2.
Yeah, and they're in the town of Nilbog.
Yes.
I I reviewed that when I used to write for Ginger Nuts of Horror, Troll 2. Someone when I used to run a series called Challenge Kayleigh, where like people would send me terrible horror films, and then my challenge was to write a positive review. And I'd never seen Troll, so I watched Troll first, and then I thought, and then I got to Troll 2, and I was like, what? But what a great time I had. I sincerely wrote a positive review of Troll 2 because I had such a good time watching it.
Have you seen the documentary Worst Movie?
I think so. It's on my list.
It's
Oh,
If you haven't seen it, it's very much worth watching.
okay. Maybe I'll check and give it a watch anyway. Yeah. So anyone who hasn't seen Troll 2, what a classic! It will enrich your life in weird ways. It's the popcorn scene for me.
Yes, that's insane. Well, I mean, the whole movie is insane.
That was a personal highlight.
What I My favorite part actually is because I made a split-second prediction. When they're sitting down to eat dinner, and the grandfather that comes to the door, the ghost of the grandfather tells me he has to stop them from eating the dinner. And I said, he should just jump up and pee on it. And then he jumped up and peed on it.
You should have been in the writer's room, Eric.
Maybe I was.
Yeah, maybe whirl along.
I was on the astral plane. Yeah. I belong to a group, Bad Movie Night in Cyberspace. And almost every Saturday it's online, and we watch bad movies, sometimes good movies, but a lot of very bad movies. But there's a chat bar, and so it's just everybody chatting and making bad jokes and talking about our week and stuff.
That sounds fun.
And like we did a couple weeks ago, we did Violent Night.
Oh, wow.
Which is a good movie. I like that movie. We all liked it. I'd seen it before, but then we followed that up with Home Sweet Home Alone. Terrible.
Oh, dear.
Terrible movie.
I haven't seen it, but I can tell from the title.
Oh, it's bad.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if you can get the next one.
Alrighty.
All right. And I am going to have to... They use a character's name, so I'm going to have to redact that.
Okay.
I'm going to say they.
Okay.
I think. So I don't have the name of their review or anything, but my biggest gripe with this novel is King's disastrous attempt to create a complicated villain. King gives them a painfully contrived past that instead of making them more interesting, it just comes across as King making excuses for his protagonist. I think it would have been much more interesting if they had been an unrepentant bad guy. I was also uncomfortable with King's liberal use of the N-word. This book was not scary at all. A lot of scares were repetitive and childish.
Oh, that's hard. I'm just looking at my King books. Oh, my flabber is gasted for a minute. Hold on. Childish, you say?
Hopefully you can eliminate a lot that don't have liberal use of the N-word.
Not as many as I'd like, to be honest, Eric,
Yes.
in the Stephen King catalogue. Oh, wow, that is hard.
I'm trying to think if there's any clues in here that I can highlight.
Didn't like the backstory of... Did you say villain? Or is this like the protagonist you didn't like? Or can you not... Or did he not specify? If he didn't specify, don't tell me.
You could... It's one and the same?
Okay.
I don't know if
Is it Christine?
No.
Ah, crap. Is it Blaze?
No, I've not read Blaze.
Oh, I don't know. I can't remember which ones you've... Sorry.
Right, I know. I said that would be a clue, but it's not really a clue. You don't know what I've read.
I know some of what you've read, but I don't know.
Was Blaze a Bachman book?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I haven't read that. It is. I'm trying to look and see where it fits. Holy mackerel. I have it. I believe my paperbacks are in order, and it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books before Christine. I don't know if that helps.
How many? Right, I'll have one more guess, because 3 guesses seems fair. I love Christine, by the way, just as a side note.
I will tell you, Christine is not on this quiz, but I thought about it.
Okay. uh, oh, The Shining?
The Shining.
Ah!
This is The Shining. So he says, King gives Jack a painfully contrived past that instead of making Jack more interesting, it just comes across as King making excuses for his protagonist. I think it would have been much more interesting if Jack had been an unrepentant bad guy.
I disagree with that review, you know. But to each their own, obviously, but...
Do you remember where The Shining falls on in your ranking?
I think it's top 20. Top 15, probably. I didn't think that King was making excuses for him. I think he's really good at making very complex characters, flawed, complex characters that you feel uncomfortable about rooting for because of whatever stuff they've done. Where if they weren't so well fleshed out, you would just write them off and think, well, you know, screw that guy. But I felt sorry for Jack for a lot of The Shining when I was reading it. Not so much in the film.
Well, I was going to ask you, have you seen both films?
Yeah.
Do you have a preference between the two?
I do prefer, as a horror film, the Stanley Kubrick film.
Yes.
But I do think that the breakdown of the family was much better in Stephen King's miniseries, because it was just, I think it was closer to what he was going for in the book. Because Jack doesn't really have a decline in the Kubrick one, does he? He's just an asshole from the first.
Right, he just starts as an asshole and just becomes a bigger asshole.
Yeah, like, you're not surprised at all that Jack's like the way that he goes in the Kubrick film.
I'm slightly biased towards the mini because I love Steven Weber.
Yeah, me too.
And I hear he does wonderful King audiobooks.
Yeah, he's I don't remember which one I've listened to of his, but he's a really good narrator. The thing with Steven Weber for me is the first thing I ever saw him in was Dracula Dead and Loving It. So okay. I cannot look at Steven Weber without hearing his silly British accent, and like his lines and stuff are so funny.
I'm pretty sure the first thing I ever saw him in was the sitcom Wings.
Mm.
And I've seen Dracula Dead and Loving It, but he's in, and again, as you said earlier, I can't remember what we've talked about on camera or whatever. He's in Reefer Madness, the movie musical, which I have watched many, many, many times. I absolutely love it. Actually, the soundtrack might be in my car. But he's in that, and he's playing a 30s type of, bad guy character. And so he speaks in that sort of 30s way. Hey, last night you were in more laps than a napkin. So that kind of thing. And that's how I see him half the time.
I think he's really good. I think he's a really good actor. It's just that every time I look at his face, I hear him go, Lucy.
I'll have to rewatch.
I'm British.
I haven't seen Dracula Dead and Loving It in ages. I'll have to rewatch that.
I have a hot take about that film, and it's this. It is a closer adaptation of the book than most of the Dracula adaptations, the serious ones.
I will say, I've only seen Bram Stoker's Dracula, of course, the Francis Ford Coppola one. I've only seen it once, and I didn't like it.
Oh wow, I absolutely love that film, but I went through a phase, and I'm not implying anything about the fans of this film, because I am a fan of it, but the phase that I was in when I loved it was I had just discovered Marilyn Manson, Cradle of Filth of all bands, and I had just leaned into my teen goth phase, so my favorite films were Dracula, Interview with the Vampire, which I still stand by. I think that's a great film. And dark sort of romantic gothic horror. So
The Crow?
I never liked The Crow.
Interesting.
I think that maybe I was a bit too young for that when I saw it, and I just thought it was so silly, and I didn't understand. My cousins, also my cousin, but my cousin that I'm like best friends with, her older brother showed us that film, and he was like, "Oh, this is amazing," and did it, and I was watching it, and I was like, "I don't get it." But
But what a soundtrack!
yeah, yeah, that Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, I thought um there's a lot to like it. I'm a set and costume type of person, and I thought that the whole look of it and the way it was shot, and I like that almost everything in it is in camera effect, so it's aged to look at. It's aged quite well. But very long film, isn't it?
I it's another one that I would like to rewatch and reevaluate. I think part of my issue is because it was called Bram Stoker's Dracula, I was expecting a very um, close adaptation of the book, and I
Hmm.
don't think it is.
No, it's one of the furthest. Yeah, I had that as well. I've always said I really really like the film, but it's annoyed me that they've called it Bram Stoker's as if like, right, forget
Right.
all the other ones, this is the one. And they're like, Dracula wasn't a tragic, romantic hero in the book. Like I actually really like I like what they did in the film with Mina and Dracula, because it did make it, again, felt really conflicted about how I wanted it to go, because he is a monster. But yeah, I was like, that's could not be further than the book Dracula.
I did like. Hopefully, I'm not misremembering this, but I did like when he turned into a pile of rats and they all just ran away.
That was so cool.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
That's
Um,
up there with. Did you ever see the Crispin Glover version of Willard?
yeah,
When the elevator doors open and it's just filled with rats, and they slow as they run out, it reveals him standing in the middle of it.
so
That
cool.
and that shot of Dracula turning into the pile of rats are two wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful scenes.
I have, since I was a teenager, I first read Dracula. I read the abridged, like, there's an abridged kid friendly version of it, and I know that because I remember picking it out of my primary school library, so I must have been about 9. And then I read that, and then I got the actual book, and I was read it again when I was year 7, 11 or 12. And since then, Lucy Westenra has been my favorite horror character. I just love her, and I really loved her in that in the Coppola's version, because I mean, she's cut out of film versions quite often altogether, or they like merge her and Mina. So I was glad that she was her own.
Did you read the Gwendolyn Kist book? Um I can't remember the name of it, but the main characters are Lucy and the first wife from Jane Eyre.
No.
It takes place in the 60s in California, I believe, and they're living together and they're essentially trying to live their lives out of the shadows of Dracula and whoever Jane Eyre's husband is. I don't remember his name. Um, I thought it was fantastic.
That sounds like such a creative use
Let's
of characters and stuff.
let's see if we. I read it. I loved it, and I can't remember the name of it. I can picture the cover. It's
But you
something immortal. I'm
you
gonna
do
have to
read
look
a lot, Eric.
it. Gonna have to look it up. Especially again if you're a fan of the character Lucy.
Yeah.
Oops. Let's do this.
I got to play her once in a college production of Dracula, and oh my god, I've never taken anything so seriously in my life.
My favorite version of Dracula is still the Marvel Comics version.
I'm not
Um,
familiar.
Where is it? Where is it?
Is it okay for me to recommend another YouTube channel, even though we're on our channels right now?
Absolutely.
If you're someone who really enjoys vampire fiction, there's a YouTuber called the Maven of the Eventide, and no one in the world knows more vampire fiction than she does. She's a big Anne Rice fan, but she basically just knows every vampire novel, film, TV show, game that exists. So yeah, I just thought while we were on the subject of Dracula, if you like vampire content, she's she's the one you want if you want regular vampire watches.
This is a little dusty. We'll see how well you can. This is the Marvel Comics version of Dracula.
He looks cool.
Um, very classic style. That is lead. It's very. I shouldn't have lead. Reluctant Immortals.
Reluctant. I've heard of it. I didn't know that it was those characters though.
This says Reluctant Immortals is a historical horror novel that looks at two men of classic. Why does it start by saying two men? Two men of classic literature, Dracula and Mr. Rochester, and the two women who survived them, Bertha and Lucy, who are now undead immortals residing in Los Angeles in 1967, when Dracula and Rochester make a shocking return in the Haight-Ashbury district of San Francisco.
That sounds so cool.
But I don't know why they start with mentioning Dracula and Rochester, because it's Bertha and Lucy that are the main characters.
Yeah.
Fantastic book. And again, if you're a fan of Lucy, I think it's definitely one that you would want to check out.
Well, that's another one on the wish list where I'm going to be breaking my vow to not buy any more books this year.
I don't even bother making that promise anymore.
It is an empty promise that I make to myself, admittedly.
I had to, I ordered Folly, the Gemma Amor, as soon as I could. And Summer Cannon has a new one from Thunderstorm Books that I just ordered. As a matter of fact, I have in my chair here a little notebook with a list of everything I have on order. Let's see.
What else did you buy?
Let's see. The Folly came in. Bones of the World came in. King Carrion hasn't come in yet.
Oh, well. It's traveling quite far, Eric.
Picking You Out of My Teeth is the Summer Cannon.
Okay.
From Thunderstorm Books. I ordered DMV by Bentley Little from Cemetery Dance. And then King Carrion. And right now, that's all the books I have on order.
Cool. Well, happy reading. Whenever you get to them all.
Whenever I get to them all. Yeah, exactly.
I've got a few ebooks on the go right now for review. Have a list of all of my review requests on a whiteboard over there, and they're numerous. But I've started 5 at the same time because, you know, well, that's not stressful. And then my sort of like my personal reads, I'm reading this. I'm really enjoying it so far. And also it's the Weird Tales Boys, this Stephen Jones
PS Publishing.
Yes, from PS Publishing. And this is like I've been picking this up when I have, you know, a spare 10 minutes to read, because it's sort of like article form. But yeah, about some of the classics, the classic names. Really enjoying that. I do like a nice non-fiction horror read sometimes. And then obviously a Brit book.
I have some PS Publishing books that I really, really, really want to get into. I think the one is London Screaming.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one that goes with it that I cannot remember the name of. But beautiful covers. They sound very interesting.
They always have such beautiful covers, PS Publishing. They're some of the nicest looking books. And even again, when I'm like, I'm not buying books, if I go somewhere and they have a trading table, I'm like, oh, Well, I have to, really. I got Pomegranates by Priya Sharma from them, and the book, even if you didn't want to read it, the book looks so beautiful that it's just nice to have. But it's a really good book. But yeah, the shopping will never end.
I get their newsletter, and every time it's just like, oh, I want that, and I want that, and I want that.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah, they're solely responsible for how much money I spent at FantasyCon last year after saying I wasn't buying any books.
We're gonna take a step backwards in time for a moment because I forgot something when we were talking about Carrie.
Yes.
And I mentioned I said that I have not seen the Angela Bettis miniseries. And that reminded me, I wanted to ask you if you have seen the movie May.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I had mentioned to you, this I know we talked about outside of videos, that I accidentally bought a Region 2 copy of May.
Yeah. I remember I've only seen it once, and I watched it around the time it came out, I think, and I didn't like it at all. But I feel like if I watch it again now, I'll love it because I can remember basically the entire film really, really vividly, and it comes to mind every now and then. And my memory for film is usually I can only remember things I really love that I've seen multiple times like that, because things just get lost in the ether of my brain. But that one's like stuck around for years, so I feel like it's going to be it wasn't for me at the time kind of film, but I'll like it now.
It is a very weird and very slow movie.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand anybody who says, it just wasn't, I didn't like it, it wasn't for me, whatever. I can get that because it is not an easily labeled movie. But when I watched it, I don't know. I just loved it. I've
Mm-hmm.
watched it multiple times, and someday I'll be able to watch my super special edition when I have a region-free Blu-ray player.
Damn regions!
It was just so funny. I was so excited that I saw this. It's got a booklet and little postcards, and all that stuff, and tons of behind the scenes things. And I just jumped on the link and I ordered it. And I think it was the next day I went, that price was in pounds. I bet this is a Region 2. I bet this is a Region 2 disc. And I checked. I was like, yep, Region 2.
A thing that's happened to me a few times. So if you talk to my mum about this, she finds this hilarious, that I just have, for some reason, a comical history of I order something on the internet and then the thing that arrives is like a stupidly small version of the thing I thought I was buying. And now I'm in a phase of I'll buy a DVD on Amazon and it all looks fine, and then when it arrives, it's not in a foreign language, like it's still in English with subtitles that you can turn off, but I just keep getting European versions so the cover is the cover image on the DVD is the title's translated into whichever language I've ordered it from, and it really annoys me, even though I know what the film is, because I've ordered my DVDs in alphabetical shelves, and I'm like, well, that one is called The Black Coat's Daughter, but it starts with a Z in the language I accident. So now it's in the wrong place. I don't know why that keeps happening to me, because I suppose because Amazon's changed, hasn't it? Like if you order a DVD, you just expect it to be the DVD that you think you ordered.
Yeah, I think you have to be really careful.
Yeah. But as long as I can still watch the actual film, it's fine. But yeah.
All right. Well, I just wanted, since Angela Bettis came up with Carrie, and I love her, and I think the performances in May are amazing. And I just love her delivery of the line, I need more parts.
Need more parts, yeah.
Fantastic. All right, let's move on to the next Stephen King one-star review.
Go on.
And I chose this for a very specific reason. The title of the review is Story Was Okay, King's political views were not. I wish I would have been able to borrow this from the library. It was not worth my money to feel bashed about my political views. I've become extraordinarily weary of this leftist tactic. You're not going to change my mind by telling me how wrong I am and how right you are. That's it. That's all I have for that particular book.
Is it Holly?
You fell into my trap. It's not Holly.
I got 3 in my, so Elevation.
It's Elevation.
Elevation.
And I specifically chose, I was like, I'm going to get an Elevation one that could also, I've seen a lot that say the same thing about Holly.
Yeah. Those kinds
What was your third guess?
I would have said The Dead Zone.
Interesting. Were people still complaining way back then about his politics?
No, but I thought that if it was someone who'd recently read it.
Yes, I can see that.
King's always been talking about politics in his books. I think it's just people are so divided and extreme in their opinions now that I don't know, people tend to take someone's differing political opinion as an attack on their opinion. Although I can see it, to be fair, with like, because King isn't impartial with his stuff, with his politics, so
I thought he was pretty balanced in Holly.
I did as well, but most of the comments, most of the bad reviews I saw of that were people like anti-vaxxer people who were absolutely raging.
Mm-hmm.
But I did think that he was just reflecting 2021 as people were, like that everyone was, whether you wanted the vaccine or not, or whether you wanted to wear masks or not, that was a constant thing that everyone was thinking.
Whether you voted for Trump or not.
Yeah, they were, that's all anyone was talking about that year. So it does make sense to me that the book reflects that. Like, I think it's because people know that he's more of a lefty, so like maybe they read judgment into, I don't know.
The crazy, and I don't know, I'm not an expert, not a psychologist or a sociologist, but I mean, politics has always been in fiction.
Yeah.
And being a comic book fan, I see so many people pushing back against diversity. They're like, oh, forced diversity. Marvel is doing this or DC's doing that. They're making this character and that character. And to me, I just think one of the most popular comic books that has ever come out, the comic book that saved the X-Men and made them the juggernaut they are today, Giant Size X-Men #1 from back in the late 70s, early 80s, introduced a team that was a woman from Africa, a Russian man, a German, an Asian, a Native American, and I'm probably forgetting something. And everybody loved it. You had this melting pot of a team, and everybody loved it. But nowadays, for whatever reason, they introduce a Muslim character, and they're forcing their diversity on us. They introduce an LGBTQA plus character, and they're forcing this on us. They were doing it decades ago.
Yeah, I think in some cases I think it's like obvious when a production company has gone, let's tick some boxes. But for the most part, I do just think, that's just people being more conscious of the fact that everyone on TV has been white for the longest time and straight, and English is the first language. And I do, God forbid we start reflecting society as it actually is with more types of people. Like I feel it makes me sad that people are so angry by just seeing a Muslim character existing in something. I fell out permanently with someone that had a big issue with The Haunting of Hill House because of Theo being gay or bi. I don't remember, but I just remember that there was a scene when she's introduced into the show, she's with another woman, and I had a friend who I did not realize was a massive homophobe, and he was like, "Oh, I've stopped watching. I'm not going to watch the rest now." And I was like, "Why?" And he was like, "Oh, it was like really gratuitous scene." And then I watched it, and I was like, "No, it wasn't. It wasn't gratuitous, but even if it was, if that was like a straight couple, no one whinges." And he was like, "Oh, well, it was just like, there's no point to it for the story, though." And I was like, "Well, someone's sort of sexual preferences doesn't have to be a plot point. Gay people just exist."
I had that thought when I was reading reviews for Legends and Lattes.
Mhm.
Are you familiar with that book?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it.
I loved it. It's a cozy fantasy.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people
And
reviewing it.
absolutely loved it. The prequel was on my top 10 list for 2023, but the main character has a same-sex relationship with another character. And before I had read it, I was looking at some of the reviews, and I like to look at one-star reviews. And someone said it was the kind of thing, they're like, I'm not against, gay people or gay relationships. I just don't know why it has to be in here. It has nothing to do with the story. And I'm like, so do you not like a book with a straight relationship that has nothing to do with this? No one's saying,
No
why
one,
is there a relationship in this story when it doesn't move the plot forward?
yeah, no one has ever had to justify a straight relationship that's nothing to do with the plot. No, no, yeah, I've got nothing against it, but why is it on TV? Oh, well, because people exist, and
Yeah.
high time that we started showing that on TV. My 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 best friend has a daughter, 7-year-old daughter, and one of my favorite parenting moves I have ever seen in my life. I was over there a couple of years ago. She's so cute. She had this boyfriend for like 4 years, from like whenever she went into like part-time preschool. Like, "Oh, my boyfriend Alan." And Alan as well, as a name for a 4-year-old at the time, I thought was so adorable. But whenever she like talked about that, my cousin and her husband would be like, "Oh, in the future, if you decide you want to get married to a boy or girl," and they've never like, the language that they use when she brings up stuff about love and weddings and things like that, they never just like default to husband. They always say a person or boyfriend or girlfriend, just to like let her know that there isn't like a default normal one.
Yeah.
So that, because they said we would never want her to feel like she has to like come out if that's her preference later. We would just want her to feel comfortable to you know and I was like, that is a boss parenting move, because you don't know who your kids are, who they're
Yeah.
going to be later on. And I thought like creating an environment where a kid they don't even have to worry about it. It doesn't even cross their mind that they're going against the grain somehow or something like that. I was like, oh, that's I'll be stealing that if I'm lucky enough to have children. That's like gonna I'll be doing that. But I don't know. I don't know why people have such an issue with. Well, I do think, oh, it's because people have prejudices. I can't see it any other way, because I'm like, well, why would you? I'm not saying that I don't notice a diverse cast. I'm not going to be like, oh, well, I don't see
Right.
disability or something, but I feel like if you see a character that's like in a wheelchair, for example, it's only like noticeable to me because you hardly ever see it. So hopefully, when we reach a time where people are just reflected as they are, like in groups and stuff on TV, it won't be a thing that you like, oh, like you'll just think, oh, that's, yeah. Yeah, that'll be nice, wouldn't it?
Yes. Well, do you recall where Elevation fell in your rankings?
It's pretty low.
Not a fan?
Pretty.
Said not a fan of it?
I no. I thought it was fine. but not one of his best. And I thought, funnily enough, I did think it was really derivative of Thinner, for like the obvious, like not the same
I've
kind
not
of thing.
read.
Yeah. Thinner's great though. I really enjoyed Thinner.
I have that. I have it somewhere, but I haven't read it yet.
There's some hilarious cultural stereotyping in that hasn't aged well. But for the
I have seen the movie.
yeah,
I don't know how they compare.
For the movie, it's pretty faithful to the book. Yeah, it's pretty good. But I thought that I think I felt like Stephen King was trying to be inclusive in his characters in that, but he went a little bit wrong.
Looking at the 1-star reviews, for the most part, you could divide them into 2 categories.
Yeah.
Some people put both of those categories together in their 1-star review, but you either had, on the one hand, you had the people that gave it a 1-star review because of the politics.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, it was the people that felt ripped off because it wasn't a full novel.
Yeah, that was a problem with the marketing, wasn't it? I remember when it arrived and I was like, this is not a novel.
I think I bought it at Walmart, so I saw what I was getting.
Yeah. I wouldn't put it in the 1-star category, but it wasn't one of his best to me. But I did like the weirdness of the main plot, like the main concept. I was like, oh, that's the kind of weird I love Stephen King for. But I think it was just the couple that the guy's at odds with. I was wondering, well, they were so hated by the neighborhood because they were lesbians, and I was wondering if that is the truth of where he lives or his experience, because people are prejudiced still in the UK, obviously, but I've never seen like an entire town just openly hate. Although all of the gay people tend to move out of my town, so maybe that is a thing. I don't know. I haven't had the experience of those aren't my experiences, so I wouldn't know, I guess. But I can't remember exactly what I was cringing at with that book, but I felt like his heart was in the right place, but he'd gone a bit awry with something, or I don't remember what exactly.
Execution didn't quite match.
Yeah, I do think that he tries hard, though. I think he's a man. How old is he? Like 80?
Very close, if not, yes.
Approaching it, and he's been writing for decades. And when I did my big Stephen King read, where I was trying to read all those books I hadn't yet read, I read them in publication order. So I could see, and I was reading them all one after the other, and I could see like it was really noticeable to me how much effort he was making to like do better with some of the stuff he may have not been great with initially. So yeah, I don't think he's always like got it right, but I do sincerely believe that he's a decent person that, maybe has like some ingrained prejudices that he's been trying to outgrow. So I cut him some slack. Like I do cut him a lot of slack if I read something and go, oh, shit.
Yeah. All right. Let's see what the next one is.
Go on.
The title of this one is Not Again. And actually, I think this might be easier than I initially thought when I chose it. But I chose it for this opening line. I would rather eat my own moldy and gangrenous leg and die slowly and miserably of superflu before reading any more of this descriptive drivel. I have stopped at page 372. This is my first foray into the best-selling novels of the late 20th century, and I am disappointed, although not surprised, at how trite and unentertaining it is. How could I not choose to read this? I would rather eat my own moldy and gangrenous leg and die slowly and miserably of superflu before reading any more of this descriptive drivel.
Oh, God. I'm thinking, but you know, my favorite thing, one of my favorite things is reviews like that where you can like feel the anger, like someone is really mad that they like wasted their time on a book they hate, and they're so mad that they take to the internet to write something like that. I eagerly await when it happens to me. um, oh, is it The Stand?
Yes.
I said
I
it because
did
of the
not.
super glue. Yeah.
When I first read it, I just went right over the super flu part
Yeah.
because I was stuck on the gangrenous and moldy leg.
Yeah.
And then and what I've done is I screenshotted these reviews. I don't know how other people do this because I've seen videos of people doing this. But I had to I just looked them up on my phone, took a screenshot, and then edited it down to the part that I wanted and wrote. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. I wrote, yeah, there's too much reflection. Oh, there
Oh
we go.
yeah, I can see. Yeah.
Where I scribbly, so I knew which book it was. But yes, I absolutely. And then the rest of this review, basically, it's someone who um, only reads, classic literature, books that mean something to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And but yes, I could not resist that one.
Yeah, that's funny. I really like The Stand. As you know, it's in my top two. Um, I love The Stand, but I do understand it. I mean, it's not for everyone, and it's a very big book. So if you don't enjoy it, I like that's a lot of time that you've spent.
Have you read both versions?
Yeah,
And do you have a preferred version?
I prefer the uncut one, but I'm a big fan of Stephen King's tangents. And that's a common complaint. Like, oh, he rambles too much. He goes off on a side story that doesn't matter, and da da da. But it's usually character related, and I'm very for characters. So, yeah, I like all of the unnecessary things, as people say. Like, I think that they're crucial to how I think of the character, so I enjoy it. So, yeah, I like the longer one.
I uh I read it for the first and only time so far at the beginning of the pandemic.
Good
It seemed
timing.
it seemed appropriate. I mean, that's
Yeah.
literally why I chose to read it at that time. I wasn't working. I didn't work for I don't know how many months.
Yeah.
So why not dig into a big fat Stephen King book? And the copy I have very specifically, I keep like people can see what I'm pointing at here, but my old Stephen King paperbacks, I went for the earliest edition paperbacks I could find because they were the ones I grew up with. And
Yeah.
so I have my copy is the black cover with the crow head kind of superimposed on the face.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's the first cover I remember ever seeing of the book. That's the one I wanted. So that's the copy I read. I do want to read the uncut copy.
Hmm. I can't remember what the difference is, to be honest, because the uncut one is the last one I read, so I can't actually remember what was added in now of all of it. It's a big book, but yeah, that's a great time to read it at the start of the pandemic. I'm pretty sure I saw Stephen King say, his book sales for The Stand like shot up during 2020. So
You except for his new stuff, he's not getting those sales from me because these are all used.
yeah.
Since I am looking for those old copies.
Yeah, I prefer the old covers. I think it's because that was where I grew up with, because my mum has them all, so she'd buy them as they came out. So she's got all first UK editions, and she said that she'll give them to me. So she's having gonna have a big sort of spring clean this year. So she's like, oh, I don't have room for these. You can have them. I was like, oh, can I? I do have all of the Stephen King books, but I would like to replace some of my newer versions with the old ones.
I need to make a nice, clean, concise list of what I have. All the old paperbacks are over here, and then there's a bunch of like over that way are a bunch that I've been filling in, and then over here are the new stuff, except that's now blocked off by book carts. So some of the new stuff is also over here. Like Holly, Billy Summers, Fairy Tale are over here. That The Outsider, Let It, uh, If It Bleeds, and Elevation, and The Institute are all over here. So I need to get them together, make a list, because I can't always remember. Like, I'll go to the half price books and I'm like, did I get Bag of Bones already? Don't remember.
Yeah, you told me that you do that. Sometimes you'll buy a book and they'll go, oh, wait, I already have it.
Yep.
I get stressed about how to organize my books. Reorganizing my bookshelves is a really fun hobby to me, but my Stephen King shelves are stressful because I wanted them all in publication order.
That's generally how I do it.
But then I was like, oh, but I'll put all the Dark Towers together because I had them gifted to me as a set, and when you line the spines up, it says the Dark Towers. So I was like, well, I'll put those together. And then I was like, oh, what about the Gwendy trilogy? Because the second one wasn't Stephen King, but it really annoys me to have it separate. So I've put them all together. And I'm like, oh, but he's not Stephen King.
I let the first book dictate where it's going to go.
Yeah.
So, for example, I don't have the Dark Tower books. I'm eyeballing a nice box set.
Yeah.
And I just did my taxes yesterday. So I think when I get my tax return, I might get that box set. But yeah, I would go publication date, and then wherever the Gunslinger is, from that point, it would be the Dark Tower series.
Yeah.
And whatever came out after the Gunslinger.
Yeah, that's what I've done. That's what I've generally done, because I put my Mr. Mercedes trilogy together. But I've got different editions of those. So one of them's a nice hardcover, then the next one's a paperback. So it annoys me that they look like that. But I'm like, well, I'll replace. I slowly like to, all of the books that I have that I like, if there's a hardcover edition, I've been trying to replace my paperbacks, which is a slow and expensive process.
Yes.
But
the reason mine are so scattered is because I was doing the old paperbacks, and they're in a stack on top of a bookshelf, and there's no more room on that stack.
Yeah.
And so I started, as I was getting the new ones, I was putting them on this shelf over here. And so that's where it was The Outsider, then Elevation, then The Institute, etc. But now that's blocked. One, it's full, and it's blocked by book carts. So unfortunately, as I get books, they're just sort of randomly going on stacks that have room.
Yeah.
Because there's, like, when I get a new Brian Keene book, there's no room to put it with the other Brian Keene books.
Yeah.
So someday when I have more room, and I have shelves for all of them, they will all be, in an order.
Yeah. I thought that my little office that I'm sat in now is the smallest room in my house, but I've got 4 bookcases in here, and I thought that's plenty. And then I started unpacking my books, and I thought, oh, I have way more books than I thought I did. And I'm always buying more books, so yeah, they're going to end up in piles eventually.
That's all right. What a way to go.
Yeah, and I know what people think. Oh, why don't you just give some away? No, I can't.
I do take books to Half Price Bookstore occasionally.
Yeah.
Things that I've had for years and years and years and years and haven't read, and I look at it and go, I don't see myself reading it in the near future.
Yeah.
I've had the chance for so long. I'll pass it. I need the room.
Yeah.
The few books that either I've started and just started once or twice and couldn't get into, if I'm not going to finish reading it, why do I have it?
Yeah.
Things like that. So every once in a while, there's a sort of a purge.
Yeah.
And yet I still have thousands of unread books.
Oh, God, I have so many. And every year I go, this is the year that I'm going to clear my TBR. and then I finished the year with more books on it. And, you can only read so much.
Unfortunately, I
Yeah.
want to read it all.
Yeah, I would love to not have to sleep. I guess
That
so
is
much.
something we have discussed, I think,
Yeah.
off video. I've actually talked about this with someone at work that, it'd be so great if you could just stop time.
Yeah.
And I would either, I would stop time and either nap or read.
Or both of those. If you can stop time, you can do plenty of both. Yeah. And then when you unfreeze it, you've aged 10 years, and everyone's like, what happened?
No, there has to be a way where you don't age while it's stopped.
Yeah. That would be great.
Got to work out the kinks.
Yeah.
Have you seen either or both of the Stand adaptations?
I've seen the original miniseries, but I haven't seen the recent one because it wasn't available in the UK. I don't know. Well, I'm sure that there was a way to see it, but and then everyone was saying they were really disappointed with it, so I bumped it down my list of priorities. So
What did you think of the original?
I haven't seen it in a long time, but I did love it. But I saw it as a kid, so I do remember the Hand of God thing looking quite hokey. But I really loved Nick Andros. He was my favorite character in the book too, and I loved him in the film.
I've only seen the first part.
Yeah.
And the only thing I remember is there is no way, and again, this might be something we've talked about before. There is no way that song was a #1 hit song.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know who came up with that for the movie, for the miniseries, but that's not a #1 hit song.
Yeah, I do. I remember liking that. I think I think that the adaptation, it was a good adaptation, I think.
It's a great cast.
Yeah, great cast. It's just a few decades back now, so it's probably aged weirdly, I would imagine. I'm sure that the effects are a bit crap, but yeah, I liked it.
And the guy that played crap. Who's the bad guy?
Oh, Randall Flagg?
Randall Flagg. I had Captain Trips stuck in my head and couldn't get past that to Randall Flagg. The guy that played Randall Flagg, I don't know if you've ever watched any Law and Order TV shows.
No.
There was one called Law and Order Criminal Intent with Vincent D'Onofrio as a very Sherlock Holmes type character. But his captain, his police captain, was the guy that played Randall Flagg in the
Oh, cool.
the miniseries.
Yeah, I liked him.
Little pointless trivia.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not pointless. I love trivia.
All right, here we go. I think this one, let's see. Don't remember where I'm supposed to stop, so I don't give anything away. But this one, the title is Dull, Uneventful, Worthless.
Ooh.
The main problem with this book is that you just don't care about the fates of the characters. Sure, you've got all the wham-bam gruesome action, some well-described scenes of torture, but even during these sequences where your interest should be at its highest point, the mind tends to drift, to imagine alternate scenarios, to develop a better telling of the story itself. Let's see if I can read this. Every deep end page after every drudging leaf of cheap sanitized paper, it goes on and on and on, and who the hell cares in the end? Stephen King has never been a great writer. Just a
Beg
man,
your pardon.
just a man with a fertile imagination and enough ability to get by with a fully created world. But when the story lacks depth or incident, then all that scamming and lying to conning for prestige is gone, and you're left with a hack churning out yet another volume of garbage.
Well, I feel like whoever wrote that had a bad day. um, Is it Misery?
Very good.
Is
Yeah,
it?
it is Misery. I wasn't sure how that one, because Wham Bam Gruesome Action, I'm like, is there that much gruesome action? There's a couple
Yeah, he said
things.
it was the torture line, and I was
Okay.
trying to think then, oh, what would you? Yeah, what does he have? So yeah. Oh, wow, I can't imagine someone hating Misery that much.
I
I
will
personally like Misery. So.
I will say Misery was the last Stephen King I read for, well, until Doomakey.
Mhm.
And then I didn't really, Doomakey I thought was fine.
Yeah.
And then I read Under the Dome, which I loved.
Mhm.
And then it was The Outsider. Now, since The Outsider, I'm getting everything again and I'm going back. But my huge gap is post Misery.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved Misery. I have the paperback copy that has the fake cover inside it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Uh, and after that, I tried reading Gerald's Game, which sounded amazing, and I couldn't get into it. I tried reading The Dark Half, couldn't get into it. So I just sort of gave up. Although I have The Dark Half. I don't have Gerald's Game at the moment, but I definitely want to read those.
Yeah.
But yeah, Misery I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, I loved it. Do you ever, when you read a book that you love and you had a great time, and when you finish it, you're sad because you're like, oh, that was so good. I really, really struggle to pick my next book then
Oh, absolutely.
because I know that whatever I pick next is going to be unfairly compared, like my enjoyment level's going to be like I'm going to be harsher on the next book, I think, because of how much I love the other one. I've had a few like that where I'm like, maybe I'll take a break from reading for a couple of days.
I have had periods of 2-3 days where I don't read anything because I can't choose what to read next.
Yeah.
I'm coming down off of that high. But I do have a few books that are like go to if I don't know what mood I'm in, or if what I just read was so amazing, I'm worried about the next thing I'm going to read. There are some books I have that I know I can just read. I've read them many, many times. They're comforting, um, and and I'm not going to be disappointed in them based on
Mhm.
what I previously read. So I do have a little buffer, some buffer books.
Yeah, like a palate cleanser.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. um, so Misery movie.
I loved it. It's great.
Do you think they made the right choice with the hobbling in the movie versus the book?
Ooh. I don't not like the choice, but which is better? I do think that maybe for the screen it might have been a bit far to do the book one.
I
For some,
believe, I believe William Goldman, who wrote the script, right? William Goldman. I think I have his name right.
Mhm.
Um, yes. I believe he really, really fought for the book version, and then they made the obviously the movie version. And then when he saw it, he's like, "Yeah, that was the way to go."
Yeah, it is brutal. I can never actually look. And I'm not particularly squeamish, but that ugh, yeah, it goes through me.
It's it's the kind of thing for me. What's most painful to see in a movie is something that I've either experienced myself
Mhm.
or have come close enough that I can feel it.
Yeah.
I've never, again, I feel like I know I've talked about this with somebody. I just can't remember if it was specifically you. I've never had my head cut off.
Yeah.
So I'm not feeling it when I see a decapitation in a movie.
Yeah.
But I have had my foot go like that
Oh God.
and torn the ligaments in my ankle And so I could feel it in Misery. Oh, was that too much?
No, I have a similar thing, but it's not like a physical. So for me, that scene is just so awful because first of all, she doesn't even hesitate. Like as soon as she swings a thing, like she doesn't even think about it. She's decided she's doing it, and it's the weird casual way she does it. But for me, what I could relate to is that I did spend a period of time unable to get out of bed, and I had nurses looking after me. So not that the nurses were scary. My nurses, luckily, were not Annie Wilkes types. But you are just at the mercy of everybody else. Like you can't make any decisions for yourself. So like the idea of that's where my mind goes with that is like, oh my God, imagine like there's no way you can get up. Like you just have to sit there and take it. Like yeah, that film is so great. That's one of the great Stephen King adaptations.
The thing I like about the scene in the book, if I remember correctly, is that the little hatchet she's using is a bit dull, and it takes multiple swings.
Yeah, I think.
Which I really like that.
Oh.
Yes, fantastic movie.
Yeah, such a great concept.
So Max Booth III better watch out once I get my hands on him. Let's see what's next. Okay, this one I have no idea how this is going to go. The title is There Are Good Ones, Okay Ones. As with any book that contains multiple stories, there are good ones, okay ones, and bad ones. With this book, the stories that are just okay and are either hit or miss. That's what the sentence says. Unfortunately, the misses outnumber the hits in this book. Even the good stories, the hits, have weak endings. As typical with Stephen King, you'll get a reasonably solid intro, some character development, an interesting horror scene or two, then an ending that just loses the reader completely or leaves the reader thinking, well, that was dumb. And that one's actually the whole review. I didn't edit that one at all.
Is that a short story collection?
But yeah, I mean, that's the problem. It's just a very generic review of a short story collection. So you're just swinging blind.
Everything's Eventual? No. Dang it! The Bizarre Bad Dreams?
No.
Ah. Oh, well, which then? Those are the two that are favorites.
Think about it. Think about, I said everyone is a book that I've read.
Yeah.
And think about the section of his books that I said I didn't read.
What? It's not Skeleton Crew.
Oh, you're so close.
Night Shift?
Night Shift.
It's Night Shift! I am shocked.
Which one has Battleground?
Skeleton Crew.
Skeleton Crew? Then that's the first Stephen King book I ever read.
I'm sure that one's Skeleton Crew.
Well, which one has the mist?
Skeleton Crew.
Then I think Battleground's in Night Shift.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah, maybe I can't.
Well, I mean, it's hard to remember.
I'm shocked by that because I think that Night Shift is like outstanding generally. Like I'm shocked.
Well, did I ever tell you my Stephen King origin story?
I don't know. Tell me again, even if you have.
Well, basically, growing up, my friend's mother was always reading Stephen King, so I saw the books constantly. Had never read any. When I was in my early teens, Carrie was on TV. Mm-hmm. And I caught the end of it. And when the hand shot up out of the ground, it was probably the most jump scared I've ever been. And I immediately went across the street to the people that I would babysit their infant daughter, because I knew they read Stephen King. And I immediately went over there and said, I need to read some Stephen King. What should I read? And George was his name, went in the house and came back out with a copy of either Night Shift or Skeleton Crew, whichever one has Battleground, and said, here's some short stories, read this. And then, interestingly enough, when I was reading it and got to Battleground, that was in a Scholastic reader that I had read when I was a little kid.
Oh, wow.
Had no idea who Stephen King was. But that's what got me started reading Stephen King.
That's so cool. Yeah, I like how everyone has a Stephen King origin story.
Let's see if this is going to tell me. So it has Graveyard Shift, The Lawnmower Man, Children of the Corn, Quitters Inc., Gray Matter, The Boogeyman. Doesn't mention Battleground, but that's obviously not a complete list of what's in it.
Yeah.
I don't see a table of contents on Amazon. Let's try Google. I can never remember which book between Skeleton Crew and Night Shift contains which stories.
Yeah, I only know that Skeleton Crew definitely has The Mist, because it always surprises people that I like Night Shift more than Skeleton Crew overall, even though The Jaunt is also in Skeleton Crew. And those are two of my favorite of his short stories ever. But I think overall I liked more of the stories in Night Shift, like, a lot.
All right, so here we go. This is Night Shift. Jerusalem's Lot, Graveyard Shift, Night Surf, I Am the Doorway, The Mangler, The Boogeyman, Gray Matter, Battleground, Trucks, Sometimes They Come Back, Strawberry Spring, The Ledge, The Lawnmower Man, Quitters Inc., I Know What You Need, Children of the Corn, The Last Rung on the Ladder, The Man Who Loved Flowers, One for the Road, and The Woman in the Room.
Mm-hmm.
Whew.
That's a lot.
Yes.
I would never have
And it's a lot of bangers.
Yeah, that 1-star review is just surprised. I was thinking, oh, it won't be Skeleton Crew or Night Shift, so I'm really surprised. But
yeah, and I know that the Battleground and The Mist are in two different books because of two different experiences. Again, reading Battleground, I knew that was in the first one I ever read, and that I recognized it from a Scholastic reader. And then with The Mist, we did talk about this. I was reading it, my back to a window, so absorbed that when I was told to go outside and walk the dog, I thought my mother was insane.
Yeah.
How could you ask me to go outside into the
things up there.
And then it's a beautiful sunny day. Of course I'll go walk the dog. But for that second.
Oh, I love books.
Books are wonderful.
Like books that you get like super engrossed in as well. I forever remembered my reading experience of Matilda when I was a kid, because I loved that book so much that the week that I was reading that, my mum we did a couple of family visits, and I remember going to my nan's house and then my other nan's house, and I insisted on taking my book with me because I didn't want to not read it. So my mum was like, that's fine, yeah, you can bring it. And I remember being told off in both households because I was sat there reading my book, and then I was like, hello, Kayleigh, you're being really rude. And I was like, I didn't even care. I was like, I'm reading Matilda. But I don't even remember that much of the book itself, but I do remember how much I loved reading it. So it's just like a fond book memory for me, that one.
I've always been a fan of reading, and I tend to say it's because I was always grounded so much and reading was the only thing I could do. But I was reading before I was getting grounded so much. I do remember one year, probably 4th or 5th grade, we were, they wanted a book report a week. Mm-hmm. And by the end of the school year, I had read like 13 extra books that I didn't get to give reports on because we ran out of school. Reading, it's so wonderful.
It is. There's I can't speak for every school in the UK, but there wasn't a focus on reading in my school. Like we book reports are quite like an American thing to us. I've never had to write a book report for school. Maybe one where it was like a book that we were reading in class. But yeah, I wish that we'd had more encouragement with. Well, I would have loved that. I didn't need encouragement to read, but I would have loved it if my homework was reading books.
It's sad that it seems to be there's no encouragement to read anymore. When I was slightly too old to participate, I think, but I have plenty of siblings that were the right age. We had there was the Pizza Hut summer reading thing, and kids could earn free pizzas by reading.
That is such a good idea.
And considering pizza is one of the greatest foods in the world,
Yes,
and reading is one of the greatest pastimes in the world, put them together.
yeah. I think that I might have talked about this with you. That like I really think that a lot of adults don't like to read because when you are made to read in school, they're really restrictive about what you're allowed to read.
Yes.
And I still believe this. Like I don't think that they pick the books very wisely for the age groups, because something like Of Mice and Men to most 11-year-olds is just not like interesting.
Is that when you had to read Of Mice and Men?
Yeah, we read Of Mice and Men, and then almost everything else was Shakespeare stuff. And I see the value in Shakespeare, but I like theatre as well, so there's that. I struggled a bit less with the language, but that's because I was doing theatre. But I do think it's a bit insane to, make a bunch of 13-year-olds spend 6 months doing Romeo and Juliet and struggling through all of the language, and then be surprised when they don't like reading as a hobby because it's turned into such a chore. And we were never given options like, oh, pick a book and talk about this. It was always, you are all reading this one book. And it was never, I like Of Mice and Men, but that kind of I like genre fiction, so I never got to read anything for school that was in my wheelhouse at all. And I think it only didn't ruin my love of reading, because I loved reading so much that I was like, well, it's a book. It's good that my homework is a book, but I think for other people it wasn't already a hobby. It'll put you off. What did you read in school?
Well, I don't recall what we had to read in junior high, which is 7th and 8th grade, which is around 11, 12, 13.
Yeah.
12, 13, 14. But in high school, I remember in freshman English, we read Romeo and Juliet. Now, we did have, as our freshman textbook, was a book of short stories that was, specifically made for, I guess, high school English classes. And there were 3 stories. I always feel like I've told you this. There were 3 stories that I just kept reading over and over and over again. And they were A Cask of Amontillado, by some guy named Poe, I think.
Some guy, yeah.
Some guy. I don't know if he ever wrote anything else. But that was the one Poe story in this whole book. So that's the one I read over and over. Harrison Bergeron by Kurt Vonnegut. And then this story called Mr. Beasley, that I can never remember the name of the author, that I got into an argument with my teacher about it. It's basically about an abused kid who calls up a demon that eats his father.
Yeah.
Or stepfather or whatever. And the teacher insisted that it was allegorical. I insisted it was literal.
Yeah.
But I kept reading those 3 stories over and over. And then in 10th grade, 10th, 11th, 12th, we read Tale of Two Cities, Great Expectations. Great Expectations might have been 9th grade as well. Man, I don't remember everything. In 12th grade, I had to read for a paper. I was in advanced English classes in 10th, 11th, and 12th grades. In 12th grade, everybody was assigned 3 books to write a paper on. And mine were The Stranger, Metamorphosis, and The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I never did read The Stranger.
Yeah, I haven't read that, but
I faked that part of it, but I did read
Did
Metamorphosis and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I know there's other stuff. I just can't remember what it was. It's weird because in 10th and 11th grades in advanced English, I did not do well because I didn't like the teachers.
Yeah.
But they kept me in the advanced classes. And then in 12th grade, the teacher and I actually bonded over Doctor Who fandom. And I did very well in that class. I was interested and I did well. But
yeah. It just goes to show that the teacher has got a lot to do with how well people do in a class. Because when I used to work as I don't know if I've told you this, but unless I've prefaced everything I've said with that. I used to work as a home tutor, and it was mostly like, kids, primary school kids, so like younger than 11, and then I had a few like teenagers and adults that were doing GCSEs or exams, A levels, things like that. And it was all English because that's what I know. So that was what I taught. But like, I didn't have a single student that wasn't smart. It was that they like were having issues at school, and I was always so flabbergasted by like, I'd get the rundown from their parent that would like, and I got this one kid, I just loved him. And I could tell, like, the first time I met him, I was like, this kid is like so above average intelligence wise for his age. He was unreal. And his mum was like, oh, he's awful. He's just terrible. He can barely read. And they're always saying that he's got behavioral problems in school. And, and this is all in front of him. She was like, he's rubbish at writing and all this. And I was like, this is the issue. Like, this isn't. And then when I sat down with him she just like left us alone. So I just like spoke with him a little bit, and then I gave him really advanced. I made a test for him to see where he was, and I was like, yeah, he's he is well ahead. He doesn't actually need tuition. He needs a supportive environment. Like if he's got behavioral issues in school, it's because of there's something going on. Like, yes. Nothing to do with his book smarts, but yeah, I loved that kid, and I loved teaching him, but I felt like, she's paying me and I'm not, I can't really teach him anything. I used to just sit there and do his homework with him because he didn't need to improve on anything.
Right.
And I did wonder what kind of classroom environment he had where, they were so concerned that they paid for extra tuition for him. And I was like, yeah, this kid is way smarter than any of the adults I teach.
Don't know why I went on that.
Yeah. Sorry about that. That was a rambling tangent.
Oh, that's fine. That's what we're here for. We're just having fun on a Friday night in the new year.
Yeah.
All right. But let's move on to the next book.
Yes.
I don't have the title of the review.
Go on.
So there's just a little bit. Trying to see if there was something. Yeah, there's one word I have to redact, I think.
Okay.
Because it might give it away. So this is just the part that I have here is the plot was regularly driven forward by multiple characters having strange dream sequences on the same night. Lame, or by their endlessly wandering thoughts. The man's career was so uninteresting that it was painful. His wife was constantly filled with self-pity as to be beyond annoying. That's all I'm giving you.
I would have said The Stand if you hadn't already given me The Stand one. Dream sequences.
On the same night, apparently.
Pet Sematary?
No.
Ah, shit.
I could give you the one word that I left out that it might give it away.
Is it the Tommyknockers?
No, I have not read the Tommyknockers.
Oh, well. You're in
I
for a
do
treat,
have it.
Dave.
It's over there somewhere.
Dream sequences. Husband and wife.
Would you like the clue, the one-word clue?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Wait.
what did that?
No, wait. No, go on. Yeah, give me the clue.
What it actually says is the man's marketing career was so uninteresting that it was painful.
Nothing's coming to mind. Marketing career.
I'm not sure how accurate that is, but I understand what they're talking about. It's been a long time since I've read this.
Dream sequences and marketing. I just
It's an old one.
oh god. Oh my god. What is it?
So much of what was in all the other reviews would have just given it all away. So I had this was the
Yeah,
one
this is
of
a
those-
toughie.
What's that?
This is a tough one. I can't see the titles of my top shelf. I sat down. Oh man.
The man and the woman have a son.
Is it? It's not Cujo.
Cujo.
It's Cujo.
Cujo.
Oh,
I thought the marketing part would give it away.
I don't remember. That's not the bit that like. That's not what I remember from the book. I
Well,
Yeah,
wasn't the husband gone because of the poisoning disaster?
Yeah, this I couldn't remember why he was
Something.
gone. So Cujo. I love
Yeah.
Cujo.
All right,
You
there.
okay?
Just choking a little.
Yeah.
I read Cujo in one sitting, mainly because I just wanted to see how it ended.
Yeah.
So where do you remember where Cujo ranks in your rankings?
I think if it's not in my top 10, it's near my top 10. I really, really enjoyed Cujo. I know a lot of people don't like it so much on account of there being no chapters. But
There was something in one of the reviews about that.
yeah. And I know that people always point to Stephen King saying, "Oh, I barely remember writing it because of, all of the good time I was having." But no, if someone can write a book that good when they're not even like, with it,
fully there.
yeah. I've a few times. I don't drink at all these days. I get migraines, so I just maybe a glass of something at Christmas, but I generally just avoid alcohol like the plague because it makes me so ill. But back in my, youth, UK.
I'll survive.
Okay. Yeah, when I used to like go out on the weekends, like so when I was like, in university, sometimes I'd get an idea when I was still drunk and think, oh, I know. And then I'd sit down and write something and I'd feel so smug about it. And then when I looked at it the next day, I was like, I really thought that I'd cracked some sort of code last night, and this is the worst thing I've ever read. So, yes, I don't have the capacity to write great stories when I'm, not sober. So, or even when I am sober.
Well,
I'm
now,
working on it.
come on. Top 10 of 2023.
Oh, that was so lovely to see. Thank you, Eric. I am
So
really excited.
such great stories.
Thank you. I was really excited because I was like, I've never been on a top 10 list before. And then the short story that I wrote for the Perfectly Fine Neighborhood made someone else's best short stories of 2023 list. And I was like, oh, it's happened again.
I have not read that yet. It is on my medium TBR pile.
Mhm.
I have different levels of TBR piles,
Yeah, me too.
and
Yeah.
it's in there. Cujo movie fan? Not a fan?
Yeah, I like it. I thought it's pretty fairly faithful adaptation for the most part.
Big change at the end.
Yeah, probably a wise choice for a cinema audience, though, I think.
I have a book on the making of the movie. I haven't read it yet, but I'm looking forward to that. I like that behind the scenes kind of stuff.
Yeah, I really like reading about like when they've made different decisions. I like reading about the process, like what they were thinking and stuff. Concerns that people have.
Hopefully I'll live. I'm not gonna put my foot down on that anymore. I
Captain
might not
Tricks.
make it.
Hey, you gotta be careful.
All right. Here we go. The next one. Title of the review, couldn't finish. Okay. I read all the information about this book that was on Amazon. I started reading and found the crime to be grotesque and horrifying, but I continued reading because the book is well written and it captured my interest. By the middle of the book, I realized that something was not right, so I looked up a summary on Wikipedia. Does Stephen King always have to resort to the supernatural or something equally as outrageous to grab his readers? Mr. King is an excellent writer, but wastes his time on this garbage. Write something that will leave your mark in literature for a change. It may not appeal to the largest part of your audience, but you will gain a lot of respect from a smaller number of people who prefer captivating, well-written, and memorable literature.
Well, that's an interesting take. Uh, um,
I think the clues are in the very first part of that,
can you say it
obviously.
again?
What's that?
Can you say the first bit again?
I read all the information about this book that was on Amazon. I started reading and found the crime to be grotesque and horrifying, but I continued reading because the book is well written and it captured my interest.
I'm tempted to say The Outsider.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is the book that really pulled me back in and introduced me to my favorite character.
Yeah, the synopsis for that, I was so excited when I was waiting for that to come out because I thought what a great hook. Yeah. I like his supernatural stuff. It's a weird complaint to have about Stephen King because most of what he writes is supernatural.
Yeah. It's it's weird. To me, it's the odd story that's not.
Yeah, yeah.
Like Holly.
Yeah.
There's
I love
literally nothing supernatural in that, right?
Yeah, there's nothing supernatural in Mr. Mercedes.
Right.
Um and I think yeah, I think his not his non-supernatural stuff is really great, but yeah, most of what he writes is supernatural, and he's had some of the greatest ideas. Like Pennywise is I don't know, that's had like a cultural impact. Do you know what I mean? Like everybody knows Pennywise, even if they don't read Stephen King and have never seen the film. Like everyone knows. Well, I disagree with that review, but you know.
Um, yeah, I'm trying to. I mean, I suppose maybe the mainstream. I was gonna say might know him as less of a supernatural because of Shawshank Redemption and Stand By Me. But those are the only two off the top of my head I can think of that aren't.
Yeah.
But they are also two of his most popular adaptations.
Yeah, he's just a great storyteller. Me, like whatever he's doing. I'm not a big fan of sort of like snobbery with the books. Like, I don't mean to insult the person who wrote that review, but I just disagree with like, yeah, you know, it might not appeal to your wider fan base, but you'll get more respect from a smaller, as if the smaller group is like their opinion should be held in higher regard because they like literature. Like, I hate that.
Well, horror in books and film, I suppose TV is always seems to be the bastard child that nobody
Yeah.
wants to acknowledge, no one wants to talk about. I've seen, I see people post online. Why do people waste their time with horror films when you could watch real art? Because I'm entertained.
It's baffling to me as well because like the idea that there's no artistic merit in horror, and I couldn't disagree more because like some of the best storytelling I've ever seen is in horror, and the best special effects, best practical effects, and like I don't know, great writers and directors and actors work on horror. Like it's so strange to me that that's still like the attitude. Like it's like a lowbrow, you know, and people who don't like horror and they don't read and watch it always seem to think that it's horror is just blood and guts and there's nothing else. There's no, because my preferred type of horror isn't blood and guts horror anyway, although I do like it. But
well, I mean, we have talked about this. My favorite
yeah,
subgenre is animals killing people.
yeah.
I like
That was a fun one.
you like post-apocalyptic stuff.
Yeah.
But yes, I do like the wide range. I love extreme horror and splatterpunk. And I like quiet horror and creeping horror. And when people do ask, why are you reading that crap? I said, you know what? I also read Dostoevsky and Vonnegut and these other things because I like those and I like this.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah.
Not a fan of Tolstoy. I prefer Dostoevsky. But anyway.
I don't think that there's greater. I don't think that there are like. I don't think that people should be intellectually judged or morally judged on their reading tastes. I don't think that someone who reads,
unless it's like Mein Kampf, and that's their guide to life.
Unless you actually put that on a little pedestal and you go, oh yeah, what great ideas. But yeah, no, I don't think that someone who reads, classic, I don't know, like Bronte is any better than someone who reads Clive Barker, or the other way around. It's weird to me. I just think I had the weirdest conversation with someone once that was asking me, she said she didn't like horror, she didn't watch any at all, didn't read any at all. And then she said something like, how can you like it? You're a woman. It's really sexist genre. And I was like, but first of all, you've just told me you don't watch any of it. So where have you got that from? Secondly, for the most part, I would argue that horror is a genre that champions women. Like, there's a final girl trope.
Exactly.
Like, I am like, oh, there's always violence against women. I was like, there's violence against everyone in horror stuff.
Well, and that's Siskel and Ebert. Do you remember Siskel and Ebert? famously did a special episode about slasher movies
Yeah.
and basically tearing them apart.
Hmm.
They kept calling them girl in peril movies or something. And I'm like, I've never heard. They're like, these are generally known as girl in peril movies or whatever the term. I'm like, I've never heard anyone call them that.
Hmm.
But they specifically talked about how misogynistic Friday the 13th was.
Hmm.
And I watched a kill count video, and there are literally an equal number of men and women killed in that movie.
Yeah.
So unless, and I don't even remember if it has nudity, it might have
Probably.
a
I
topless
remember,
scene.
I'm sure I remember boobs because I wasn't allowed to watch Friday the 13th.
I know
Right.
from from 2 on, definitely.
Yeah.
But so unless you're saying it's misogynistic simply because there's boobs in it,
Hmm.
it can't be because of the violence against women, because there's an equal amount of violence against men. And I would say a little more graphic, because Kevin Bacon's death
Yeah.
is possibly the most graphic one.
Yeah. I, yeah. So it's a weird take because you can call them girl in peril movies, but I usually think of them as resourceful, smart woman wins the day movies. Like everyone dies except the final girl, who was the smartest, most resourceful person in the cast.
Right.
um, and they're horror films, so everyone is getting terrorized. It's not unless I'm trying to think of an example that's very female focused for victims. I suppose stuff like My Bloody Valentine. I don't know. Did he kill men in that? I don't remember.
I've not seen the remake, and I haven't seen the original in ages. So I
I've
do
seen
not
the remake because
Jensen
Jensen
Ackles,
Ackles.
of course.
um, very nice in real life, by the way. Gotta say.
Always nice to hear.
Yeah. Um, no, I don't know. I just don't. I don't agree with that assessment of the horror genre, because if we're going to make generalized, massive, sweeping statements about genres that are sexist, I'm gonna have to go ahead and say, I don't know, romance novels. I'm not a big romance reader, but I've watched a lot of, I've seen a lot of films that would fall into like rom-com or romantic drama territory, and they're all the bloody same. Woman, even a really independent woman that doesn't need no man, the second she meets the one, like the whole, like yeah, I don't take that stuff too seriously. They just
Right.
a lot of them are wish fulfillment romance stories. A lot of people do like the idea of the all-encompassing love thing, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think that horror's the genre that pigeonholes women specifically into weird. I don't know. I don't know. You could probably talk for days on that topic.
And all because of The Outsider. Did you see the Outsider TV show?
No, we didn't have it available here, but I do have it. I usually buy box sets of things like when they're not available in the UK. I wait till they finish and then I order them. So,
I didn't watch it on TV. I do have the DVD set.
oh, do you?
I haven't watched it yet.
I'm looking forward to it.
It was between that and Nosferatu.
Oh, I love that.
And I heard Nosferatu wasn't that good.
Oh, well, I don't know what the general perception of it was because I haven't really seen anyone talking about it online, which that might be a clue, but I really enjoyed it.
Well, I love the librarian character
Yeah.
book, and the actress that played the part. I knew her from YouTube, where she would do drunken makeup tutorials and book or movie reviews.
Oh, that's cool.
She was really, really funny. So I was following her because of that. And then, like, on Twitter, she's like, I got this part in Nosferatu. I'm playing this character.
Oh, that's cool. I love
But I
that.
haven't seen it yet. And like I said, it was sort of put on the back burner because I wasn't hearing a lot of good things about it. I did hear more about The Outsider. So I was like, they were both on the shelf. I went outsider.
Yeah.
All righty. This is a two-parter
Oh, go on.
because there were two sections in the review that I wanted to read. So, 1 star. The title is Regurgitated Bile in Cartoon Form. So, I read some of Stephen King's books in my youth and a few since, and hoped to have some fun returning to his work. In this outing, King has returned once again to the central theme that started with Carrie, which is to demonize and pervert all Christians into the worst beings in history. King has a tendency to have the ministers in his novels portrayed as the most depraved, while having some self-destructive alcoholic druggie as more noble than savage. And then later in the review, it says, most disturbing is King's constant loathing of all that is Christian. If he wrote with such loathing and bitter hatred against a single Jewish or Islamic character, the defamation leagues would label him an anti-Semite or infidel for life. King knows that Christians are far more tolerant, so he is relentless with his hatred towards Christians. If you love to hate Christians, this book will be fun for you. It is several steps backwards for King, that wrote with some dignity and literary skill in Bag of Bones, and is showing signs that he is out of ideas and is just out to loathe.
Well, someone hated Revival, didn't they?
Not Revival.
Not Revival!
And
I was
I have
thinking,
not read Revival yet. I hear so many great things about Revival, and I haven't read it yet.
I feel like they'd hate Revival too then. It was, do you know, Christians are the most tolerant. Oh, right, no, I'm not going to get on that kind of soapbox. Sorry. It was just the follow-up comment of Christians are the most tolerant, and then said something about druggies being savages. So
No, the alcoholic druggies are more noble than savage.
no noble and savage. I just hear a lot of judgment there. Okay, not Revival. Well, yeah. Wait.
I know this really doesn't give a lot of clues as to what the book itself is, but I just
was
loved that.
it's a really angry. Someone was really offended. I'm just cycling through the numerous religious characters Stephen King has wheeled out.
And frankly, I don't remember. It has been a while since I've read this, but I don't remember any incredibly religious characters in this book.
No, the religious characters that I always think of, there's an obvious one in Revival because it's about a faith
Tent
healer.
revivals.
Yeah.
And resurrection.
Yeah, and the Mist, obviously, because Mrs. Carnage.
Right, and he mentioned, or he or she, whoever wrote this, mentioned Carrie, obviously, the mother.
Yeah.
And the cycle of the werewolf.
Yeah, but
is the preacher in that a bad guy or just happens to be a werewolf?
I feel like he's a werewolf that just happens to be a preacher.
Because it's been a long time since I've read that one either, so I don't remember.
Oh God! Wow, they were really offended. I just refresh my memory with my collection here. Oh, it's tickled me, that review. It's once again, it's the absolute offended fury that's got me. Trying to think of a book that has both a religious character that's offensive to Christians and also someone who's an addict.
I can give you a clue that might give it away.
Is it first half of his career or second half?
Second half.
Okay. I might need a clue.
Well, I have mentioned it earlier and said I liked it.
Ah, crap.
You weren't paying attention, were you?
I was, but we've talked about a lot of stuff, Eric. Now my head is just full of Stephen King characters. I'm trying to.
Okay, I don't have a copy of this book at the moment because I'm trying to find a paperback copy that isn't in 2 parts.
It's not in 2 parts.
Yeah, it's a big book. So when they came out with like the mass market paperback size edition, they had to print it, and they printed 2 parts.
Really? Is it?
Yes.
Is it Sleeping Beauties? No.
Nope, it's pre-Sleeping Beauties.
Okay.
I haven't read Sleeping Beauties.
Is it Doomakey?
No, it's post Doomakey. I think it's post Doomakey.
Oh my god. No, I don't. Do you know? Oh, it's Under the Dome.
Yes.
Under the Dome.
Under the Dome.
I don't remember the. Wait, I'm trying to remember. What was so offensive. I mostly think of Big Jim though, so maybe right. I don't remember.
Was he religious?
Oh, is that who they're talking about?
I don't know. That I'm asking, was Big Jim religious? I don't remember him being particularly.
That's not the thing I remember about his character, if he was, but
he was just trying to run the town.
Oh gosh. Oh wow.
So where did Under the Dome fall in your rankings?
Really liked it. It would have been like probably in my top 20, I would say, if I remember. That's the feeling I have about it now. I really, really enjoyed that one. Really, like, great book. Very engrossed I was in that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. And after Misery, I couldn't get into anything of his that I tried for a long time. And then someone really recommended Doomakey, and I read it, and I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
But then I read Under the Dome, and I loved it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that book. I really laughing at that review because I immediately thought revival because for obvious reasons about the characters that are in that. I wouldn't have even. I needed the clues to get to Under the Dome because I can't remember. Well, maybe I'm not religious, so maybe I wouldn't remember. That kind of stuff wouldn't stick out to me. I don't know.
I'm probably gonna have to break down and just get a big honking hardback of it.
Yeah.
Because anytime I see the paperbacks, it's volume 1 and volume 2.
Yeah, I hate the edition that I have of it. This is another Amazon thing. This is mine, and I hate the cover so much. Oh, is it glaring at you?
No, I am absolutely against movie/TV covers.
I have ordered this book 3 times. There was a different picture for the cover when I ordered it, and then this is the one that's turned up 3 times. So next time I'm out and I actually see books in the flesh in a shop, if I find it, I'll have to just buy it there. But yeah, I hate those movie covers.
If I hear that a book I've been sort of sitting on buying, I haven't picked it up. It's interested me, but I haven't grabbed it yet. If I hear it's being made into a movie or TV show, I immediately go and get it before they come out with the movie cover. I did that with Cabin at the End of the World.
Yeah, I'm really happy about my edition of I Am Legend because I bought that years and years before it came out, and all you can get now is Will Smith on the cover, and like it's so stupid because the film is
book's the
so
same.
it's it's so far removed from the book. I just feel like if that wasn't called I Am Legend and they just called it something else, I probably would have liked it. But yeah, not my favorite adaptation, I gotta say.
Someone told me when I had talked about this in one of my reviews, and they're like, it's the same content. It's the same book inside two different covers. It's like, yeah, but I like to look at a nice cover, and I don't want to see that movie photo.
Yeah. They're separate things.
I want to see something like this.
Yeah.
Without so much glare on it.
Yeah, I've got the just looking at Adam Neville, because he'll inevitably have more movies of his works. But my my cover of The Ritual is this one. But yeah, they always get I don't actually mind the movie tie-in cover because it's a bit it's just four guys standing in the woods, so it doesn't explicitly necessarily look like the film. But yeah, I do prefer cover art.
Well, and things like Adam Neville, I want all those red and black covers.
They look so good, Eric.
So good.
They're here.
I like, they don't, I'm not going to freak out if they don't match.
Yeah.
My books don't match. But when they do, it's so nice.
Yeah.
It's so appealing. He's
re-releasing a few with the cover designer that he currently works with, so they're like redoing the covers, and yeah, they've redone the cover for Hasty for the sorry, my chair keeps spinning. Yeah, so cool. Yeah, I love those covers. My favorite cover artist is the guy that does the Adam Neville books.
I have like Clickers.
Yeah.
The Clickers books. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The first four are all completely different.
Yeah.
Because the first one is a very, very, very old edition of it. And then the Clickers 2 I have is DB. What publisher was DB? I can't remember. They're not around anymore. But I think that's a paperback. And then Clickers 3, I have a limited edition hardcover that looks completely different. I have a bunch of Brian Keene books that were from, I can't remember what DB was.
Yeah, I have a DB book. I'm not going to try and find it because I can't remember which it is, but I remember seeing the print logo. So yeah, well, I don't remember what that was.
Yeah, all those covers, all those editions are different. I'm not going to worry about getting all of the same edition.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I suppose if I were independently wealthy, I might.
Yeah.
But it's not that important. But then like Robert B. Parker is the author of the Spencer mystery novels, private detective novels. I am trying to find a certain edition of those, but they're old paperbacks. I find them every once in a while at a used bookstore for cheap.
Yeah.
But there's a like the cover that I grew up with. I'd like to have that set.
Yeah. You can't beat a nice cover, something that looks nice on your shelf and makes you happy when you see it.
Yes. One more.
Go on.
I have one more. And did I not edit this? Maybe I didn't. The title of this 1-star review is Typical King Fare, Not Seeing the Hype. I'm going to skip the first line because it might be a giveaway.
Okay.
So after that first line, it says, "This is a short story fluffed into a novel-length nothing. I'm not going to expound on it, but the whole story makes no sense. It would have been nice if the protagonist would have been driven to do what he did, but the actions make no sense." That's where I'm stopping. Because the rest, I will definitely give it away. But for now, that's what you get.
Interesting. Is it Pet Cemetery?
It is.
Ah, yes.
Very good. So the first line was, supposedly this is the only novel by Stephen King that scares Stephen King.
Okay.
I don't
yeah.
know if that would have given it away right off the bat.
Yeah, I would have known from that, I think.
It says, but I don't see why. And then they go on to say this is a novel about grief, but it doesn't do it very well. There's no rational or grieving dread that would incite any person to do what the protagonist does in this novel. It has a, well, that's creepy, but let's do it anyway just to show him. It even has the trope of the warning, where he is specifically told that if he does it, it won't end well, but he does it anyway. Why? Don't know.
Well, once again, I disagree. I guessed that because I put myself in the mind of someone who hates it. So I was like, I understand all of the character motivation in that book. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily do what he did, but I couldn't say for sure that I wouldn't.
Right.
I doesn't depict grief very well. I would say that of all books in the world, Pet Sematry's depiction of grief it's absolutely hits the nail on the head. I've never read anything more relatable about grief in my life than Pet Sematary. I thought the way that he described that and like you never really see his wife, but she's off crying in the house somewhere or something. Yeah, that's so strange because usually when you see reviews of Pet Sematary, it's people going, I've seen lots of reviews of Pet Sematary from people who don't really like Stephen King generally, but they're like, that's the exception. Because they're like, and they always go on about, the way he depicts grief. So that's a funny review to hear.
Pet Sematary is the big, I mean, that's, my regular viewers know at this point, because I've talked about it many times, how I said for decades it's the second most boring book I ever read.
Yeah.
And now it's my top 3 Stephen King.
Yeah.
I reread it and absolutely loved it.
Yeah, the character motivations don't make sense. I can't get over that. I mean, they're not good decisions, but they make sense to me.
They're not good decisions, and they're a bit extreme.
Yeah.
But in that extreme grief,
Yeah.
and the idea that while he's in that, wallowing in that extreme grief, knowing that there's a way to bring him back,
Yeah.
I get it.
It's
Yeah, like you're not necessarily going to do it, but you can understand someone doing it.
Yeah. I that kind of grief as well, that has got to be the worst. Like, of all people in your life to lose, that has got to be the worst. So I can't imagine anyone making rational decisions. If they have that option in that circumstance, I don't think I would understand people not making rational decisions in those circumstances. Wow.
I have 2, I think, again, we've probably talked about this, 2 Gage and Church Funko Pops.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Sitting on the shelf. The regular and the glow in the dark, because glow in the dark makes everything better.
Oh, Church.
So that was the last one. There were so many of the older ones, especially, that I thought about doing. Like Firestarter.
Yeah.
Firestarter falls into one of my favorite horror subgenres, which is basically the government experimenting on kids.
Yeah.
Which is why I loved The Institute. Love Firestarter. Just love. I don't know why. I just like, probably because the kids end up fucking up the government at the end. In the end, you know.
Yeah, they're good revenge stories sometimes, and yeah.
I thought about Christine. Some of the I just couldn't. I didn't want to, you know, do every Stephen King book there was, and I
Yeah,
did want to keep it to the ones that I've read. So I
yeah.
do it.
That was fun. I was so sure about revival for that one.
Like I said, some of them were very vague because other parts of the review just gave it either, you know, said something
Yeah,
so specific it would give it away. And I chose especially the one because, well, the two. The one guy ranting about how he hates Christians, Stephen King hates Christians, not the reviewer. And the one about eating your own gangrenous leg.
yeah, yeah.
I had to do that.
My favorite 1-star review still to this day is that one of The Shining that I told you about, and it just said Jack is rude.
What I always find funny, and I ran across a lot of this, are the 1-star reviews that are complaining about the Amazon's problems.
Yeah,
Trying to, you know, it arrived late. It was dented.
yeah,
This isn't the place for those. There's a place to do that on Amazon. That's not. This isn't the place.
yeah,
One
yeah,
star review for this book because the cover had a slight tear in it.
yeah. It's absolutely not the book's fault, the author's fault. Oh gosh. I do enjoy a good 1-star review. I do like to do that when I finish a book. I'll go and have a look at. I'll go look for other people who've reviewed it. And I like to watch video reviews of stuff I've just read, and then I do very often on Goodreads and Amazon. Like I'll just look at the 1-star reviews of this book that I would put in the 5-star category just to see. But that's the fun thing about books, though. Everyone's got different tastes, and a fun thing about being a Stephen King fan is everyone has different favorite and least favorite books, and it's just really fun unless it devolves into, you know, a hideous like, gets personal. I've seen it on Facebook a few times in like a few of the book groups where someone sometimes will just, I feel like, just for the hell of it, go, Stephen King sucks, people who read him are stupid. I'm like, well, I never weigh in on those kinds of things, though. I think life's too short to argue with someone on the internet about something like that.
Something that blatant, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, whether or not you're a fan of the stories he's telling, at least for the majority of his work, you can't fault his craft.
Yeah, yeah, he's there's a reason that he's so popular. I know you gotta be careful in fandoms. I accidentally started a horrible argument in, of all things, a Gilmore Girls fan group. I felt so bad. I was like, I didn't mean for this to happen from the comment I made.
Oh, wait, are you a Gilmore Girls fan, or were you?
I would say that I'm somewhere in the super fan category. To be
Okay.
honest, it's my comfort show. I just permanently have it on in the background, and then when it gets to the end, I just start it again. So it's usually on if I just want some company in the house, and because I've already seen it a bunch of times, I don't need to pay attention to it. So it's like I put it on instead of music. But yeah, yeah, people have got very strong opinions in fandoms, and I didn't realize that Gilmore Girls fans are so I don't know what word I'm looking for. Intense.
Mm,
People have very strong opinions. So
fandoms,
yeah.
any fandom, it seems. I have never seen Gilmore Girls.
Oh, it's great. It's a lovely show for the most part. I always want to live in the town that it's set in. They did a good job with the town and stuff, but
A lot
it's a
of
nice.
great actors coming from that show.
Yeah, it's really funny when you spot someone there in like a little like not a cameo, but like they hadn't made it as an actor yet, and they're just in it for 2 seconds in the background. Um, No, it's a nice little cozy show. I would describe it as. It's pretty good writing.
There was a time when my comfort show like that would have been Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh yeah, that was my comfort show for ages.
I watched that. I had the entire thing on DVD and essentially on a loop.
Yeah.
Just from episode 1 to the last episode and back to episode 1.
Yeah. I still stand by that's still one of the greatest shows ever. So...
Except for season 4.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because season 4 has possibly the most popular episode of the entire series.
It's not that music one, is it?
No, Hush, the quiet one.
Oh yeah, I like that episode.
With the gentleman. But I do think it's the weakest season.
Yeah, she goes to college in that season, doesn't she?
Do you not like the musical episode?
No, I don't. I know I'm an island on that one, but I don't really like musicals in general. So
see, I'm not a fan of musicals, but I do love that episode. I love Reefer Madness, the movie musical, and I love Evil Dead, the musical.
Yeah, I think maybe it's just because at the time it was a trend in TV to do a musical episode. So there was that. There was the Scrubs musical episode.
Xena did one.
Xena did one.
Xena Warrior Princess had a musical episode.
Oh, I used to love Xena. Just remember that noise that she made when she's somersaulting through the air.
Yes.
Which I can't do.
No, nor can I.
Yeah. Oh God, Xena! I forgot all about Xena. What a show!
Her stunt double is one of my favorite people ever, Zoe Bell.
Zoe Bell. I don't know who that is.
I love Zoe Bell. Did you see Death Proof? Quentin Tarantino's Death Proof.
Oh yeah.
She's the stunt woman in the second half of his story, the one that's holding on to the straps on the hood of the car.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
And she's from New Zealand, I believe. Almost 99% sure. She was Lucy Lawless's stunt double. Tons of stunts, tons of her own acting.
Yeah.
And I was part of a group that got to interview her, and she was just like, I just wanted to have a beer and hang out with her. I don't drink, but I just wanted to hang out and have a beer with her. Just seemed really down to earth, very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Really a big fan of Zoe Bell.
Oh, that's cool. That's really, really cool. I met someone that worked as a stunt performer because she was my friend's girlfriend. I say was, they are still together, but I just haven't seen them in a long time because they moved to London. Her name was Ruby, and it was really cool because when my friend was like, oh, I've met this girl and we started dating, and like she was all happy, and I was like, oh, well, tell me about her. I was like, what does she do for fun and what does she do for work? And she's like, oh, she's a Hollywood stunt double. I was like, a Hollywood stunt double? I was like, anything I might have seen? She was like, Star Wars, Wonder Woman. I was like, oh my God. So she's a Hollywood stunt double. And it was, they must have been filming. She was involved in something that was being filmed maybe around the Cardiff area, because she came I was working at a club at the time, waitressing, and that's where I met my friend, and she came in with Tom Hardy's stunt double for a drink once. She was like, oh, this is so, and I was like, this is cool. So I was like, oh, I must have bored them to tears asking them work questions.
Is your friend dating Zoe Bell?
No, it's not Zoe Bell. But I was so interested because I don't really know anything about stunt work. And then I was like, oh, I'm way more interested in this than I thought I was. So I was asking like tons of questions about, like, I know how you even get into that line of work and stuff. And like martial arts and all that kind of stuff. I was like, this is so interesting and cool. So I wanted to be a stunt double for a really brief period of time when I was about 14. I started kickboxing classes and I was watching Buffy a lot. So that was a phase. They don't have any real skills.
It seems like something that would be cool to do.
Yeah.
If you were good at it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, it's a dangerous thing to do anyway, but could be very, very dangerous if you're not good at it.
Yeah, I always wanted to do, like cool fight scenes, and then I saw Blade. That's probably what set it off. I was like, oh, imagine doing all cool fight scenes like Blade. so, so I'm always impressed by actors who do their own stunts because it is really hazardous.
Hmm.
So I see why a lot of the time their contracts, like they say they're not allowed because they're afraid of something happening. And I saw like a background for like stuff that happened to Jackie Chan.
Oh
And
yeah, all the
yeah,
broken bones and everything.
crazy. Yeah, he's amazing though.
Well, I like again special features on physical media, and you get the right movies, and they'll have those um, special features about the stunt performers or the fight choreography. Um, which in did you see Renfield?
No, not yet.
There's a special feature, maybe more than one, about the fight scenes and the stunt choreography and everything, and you get to see them, on the mats, just
Yeah,
practicing and choreographing. Okay, I'm going to do this, and you're going to do this, and then it's followed by this. And you see them doing it slowly, and then slowly they're getting faster as they get it down. It's obviously like a dance,
yeah.
but I love seeing that stuff.
I loved seeing behind the scenes for John Wick because
Oh yeah.
because Keanu Reeves is like people can like criticize his actual acting all they want, but as far as someone, who does fight scenes and he's he's unbelievable really. And we started watching John Wick 4 the other day, and then we got to like the first big fight scene, and I just thought it is incredible that there's such a difference between Keanu Reeves doing the fight stuff and then everyone else, even though everyone else would be a stunt performer, but he was, I don't know, he was better than, in my opinion, I thought he was just better than everyone. And I was like, that's insane. Because, like, he's like in his 50s, isn't he now? And I thought, how is he? That's nuts. Like, the stuff he's doing. But it's really, yeah, I love to see that. I do like the fight scenes in John Wick. They're really creative and
Mhm.
use the set and stuff and the locations. So yeah, it's so much fun. I don't
I
know much
haven't,
about plot for John Wick, but who
I
cares?
haven't seen the fourth one yet.
We got an hour in and then bailed on it. But it was just because there wasn't enough Keanu Reeves fighting. But my brother has assured me that the rest of the film is that's all it is, and I was like, oh, I'll go back then.
I did not know. There's the TV show The Continental, or the miniseries.
Oh, I didn't know that existed.
The Continental. It's on Amazon. It's on one of the streamers, Amazon or Apple Plus or whatever. I didn't realize there's a spin-off movie coming out in theaters, I believe, called The Ballerina. That's a spin-off. The poster, all I've seen from it is the poster, which is a ballerina, um, sort of on the floor, legs outstretched, bent over, face down, with just in the shape of the outline of a skull, just guns all over the
Oh, cool.
floor. So I'm
Some
assuming it has to do with someone in the Angelica Houston
yeah,
area from, what was that,
yeah, I think so. Yeah,
two or three?
interesting.
I don't remember. But yeah, the ballerina. Yeah, those are great flicks. I think the first one is absolutely an action classic.
Yeah, it's that's what you want from a film is amazing. Like a film like that, you want great fight scenes that are really entertaining, and I think that that's why people still love Blade so much because the fight scenes are really good in Blade. It always makes such a big difference when the actor is actually doing the fight scenes because you can tell when they've had to use a double because they cut away and you don't get really cool shots of the action. So yeah, it makes a big difference. I wish I was that cool. I don't think I could kick anyone at head height for sure. I don't have the flexibility for something like that.
I did a long time ago.
Really? Oh,
I
I've never
studied
have.
I studied Taekwondo,
Mhm.
and yeah, I had that flexibility and all that. That was 30, 40 Years ago? It was a long time ago.
I had problems with kickboxing because of my flexibility, and I was like, obviously like stretching a lot at the time for the few years I was doing that, and I thought, oh, this will just come with time, but no, my body just won't do it. So that's my excuse anyway. My body just wouldn't do it. But
Nobody
yeah,
doesn't do
watching
it
everyone
anymore.
doing the splits, and I'm just like, like only halfway down.
See, that's me with running.
Yeah.
Just don't like running. When I was in the military and was running every day, I never enjoyed it and I never got better at it.
Yeah.
Doing it every single day. At one point, we were doing it with backpacks and all that, full gear and all that. I never got better and I never enjoyed it.
Well, I'm
Oh.
actually improved with running, but all other fitness stuff is a no for me. I went swimming one time.
Oh, I love swimming.
I am planning to go back. It was so much harder than I thought it was going to be, because I can swim, but I've never gone swimming as in gone swimming for exercise before, so I was very shocked, like unpleasantly surprised by how out of breath I got immediately. So
I mean, again, in my younger days, I loved, like, again, in the Air Force, in basic training, I loved doing the obstacle course.
mhm.
And I could do pretty much any physical thing we had to do, I was fine with, except the running.
Yeah.
I could do it, but I didn't like it. I loved the obstacle course. I grew up playing tennis,
Mhm.
and racquetball, and I studied taekwondo and grew up, as a kid. Luckily, I had a bunch of people my age in my neighborhood. So we always had a baseball team or a football team or